Yo, what's good, everybody? Sorry, I'm on two different screens right now. Who's in the house? Who do we got? Thought I saw Devil in there and Candy. What's up, Devil? What's up, Candy? Of course, Ryan isn't there. Tried to get Ryan up. His ass is still sleeping or whatever the fuck, but he was texting an hour ago. Ryan, you are always late. I'm just joking. He's not always late. But it seems like I'm always chasing his ass down, though. That's for sure. But what's good, everybody? I hope everybody had a good night. Yesterday was a crazy day in the news, as usual. And we have the same stuff going on again today. I will have, of course, the news highlights from yesterday. We've got, let's see. We've got Ghislaine Maxwell speaks out. We've got more Epstein file stuff. It's basically going to be a little mix. It's going to be mostly Epstein and just news. With the Obama Clinton Tulsi thing, I'm sure. Bunch of news stories happened yesterday. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm going to learn with you guys, see what the hell happened. I mean, I only covered the day before. Hopefully I can get this video in time and we could watch this Candace Owens thing that I got. Hopefully we'll get it in for this show. If not, then it is what it is. But all right, let's get into this news thing. I'm kind of just waiting to let people kind of gather in, but it is what it is. All right, let's go.
The salute to a true icon, a legend of sports entertainment, a patriot, and in his final years, a fearless defender of faith, freedom, and the America First movement. Terry Jean Bollea, born in Augusta, Georgia in 1953, a true baby boomer. But you know him by his ring name, Hulk Hogan, the Hulkster. When he spoke at the RNC last summer, the reception he got was off the charts.
When I look out and I see all the real Americans, I think about how Donald Trump, his family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised. But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the President of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother.
I think he might have even gotten a bigger ovation than Trump himself, frankly. We were all there, our staff watching this. It was unreal. And that was vintage Hulk Hogan. It was raw. It was fairly unscripted. It was unafraid. And in that moment, he gave voice to what millions of Americans were feeling, that we'd all been pushed too far. We'd had enough. Hulk Hogan, who epitomized the phrase larger than life. But generations were transfixed by him, from the golden era of professional wrestling to the global stage of politics. He showed
Laura Ingraham mania, I still got my Trump pump on. And let me stake my claim. Let me mark my territory. I was the first one, if you were there, to do the Trump dance, baby. I had that place going at the Garden, and now it's catching on. Everybody's dancing like Trump because we got America back. We got a second chance. We've repented to our Lord and Savior. He's healing the land. He's healing the people. And we're back, Jack.
The Hulkster got serious, and you heard him allude to that about his faith later in life, just a year and a half ago, when he and his wife, Sky, got baptized. And you sensed a change in him for the better. He became more self-reflective about his life, about his family, and about his politics.
At the end of the day, I was one of the biggest cowards around. I voted for Trump before. I was afraid to wear the hat. I was afraid of the bumper sticker. But when they tried to kill him, I said, that's it. Enough is enough. And guess what? The whole the whole United States of America feels that way now. We're proud to be Trumpites. We're proud of Trumpmania. We're proud of our new president, and everybody is singing it to the heavens. And it's about time we finally get our country back.
Wait, I have to get you lost me when you said Hulk Hogan was afraid of anything. I mean, I've seen you clothesline people. I've seen you do it all. Wait, well, how could you possibly be afraid? Have been afraid of anything?
Well, as a businessman, you know, the Hulkamaniacs that have been following me for 40 years, the millions and millions of Hulkamaniacs, I have Democrats and Republicans that love Hulk Hogan and buy my merchandise and stuff. I didn't want to split my audience as a businessman. Yeah. Plus, I didn't want people throwing rocks through my business, coming to my home and doing what they did to Kavanaugh, you know. So at the end of the day, I was afraid. I was sitting on the couch being a coward. And finally, I decided to step up and be a man. That's what I meant. I was hiding like everybody else. Even though I voted for Donald Trump back in the day, I wouldn't tell anybody. It's completely different now because we took America back. We're on the right path. God in our homes, God in our country, God in our schools. One nation under God.
Longtime friend posted this just today.
That was classic. That was a classic match. Classic Hulk Hogan. Classic. If anybody in that era, you know, was around, then you will appreciate any of those old videos.
On Truth Social. And I want you to read it to you. The former president wrote, "We lost a great friend today. The Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, was MAGA all the way, strong, tough, smart, but with the biggest heart. The cultural impact he had was massive. He will be greatly missed." To Sky, his wife, his family, The Angle sends our deepest condolences. And to the Hulkster, Terry Bollea, thank you for standing tall, for fighting the good fight, and for finally saying what you believed. And that's The Angle.
This morning, the country received the devastating news that Terry Bollea, better known as Hulk Hogan, died at the age of 71 at his home in Clearwater, Florida. Medics were dispatched into the scene, and he was carried out on a stretcher and into an ambulance. Officials say the wrestling legend died of cardiac arrest. May he rest in peace. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was a household name. When you said Hulk, people knew who you were talking about. When you said Hogan, same thing. To most, he was larger than life, figuratively and literally. Billed as a snare, Hulkamania took the world by storm. Before Hogan, wrestling was seen as a kind of a gnarly sport, but soon it became mainstream. Arenas were getting sold out and pay-per-views were bringing in millions. Everybody wanted to watch the Hulk body slam a giant. The embodiment of the ultimate good guy, not just because he was picking up 7'4" giants, but because he was the pinnacle of patriotism. As the country was in the middle of a Cold War with the Soviets, the Hulk came in and kicked them out of his ring.
I can't stand to see our enemy's flag in the ring. That's why I'm carrying the red, white, and blue, brother. I'm proud of America. I stand for this country. And I'm going to promise you one thing. When this fight is over tonight, there's only going to be one flag standing. That's the Stars and Stripes forever.
What a sensational victory for the World Wrestling Federation champion.
Around the time of the Iranian hostage crisis, Hogan made a new enemy in the ring, an Iranian named the Iron Sheik.
This contest is for the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship. The World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan. Hulkster going bananas as the Sheik tried to attack.
Reagan, with a little help from Hulk, ended the hostage crisis. But Hogan didn't just deliver in the ring. He was a menace behind the mic and a master promoter.
As Donald Trump hangs on to the top of the Trump Plaza with his family under his other arm as they sink to the bottom of the sea. Thank God Donald Trump's a Hulkamaniac. He'll know enough to let go of his materialistic possessions, hang on to the wife and kids, dog paddle with his life all the way to safety.
Hogan became the hottest thing. He was even going on late night.
Do you know anything about Hulkamania?
Hulkamania?
Hulkamania. if you want me to. What is Hulkamania?
Well, Hulkamania is the newest thing, Johnny. It's the thing that is sweeping the country. It's like a new cult. And it's like follow the leader. Everybody does what the Hulkster does. It's like truth, justice, and the Hulk Hogan way.
Well, I'm looking at the size of your arms. I don't believe this. I wish I had anything that big.
Hulk went from the ring to the small screen and to the big screen. And here came Thunder Lips.
Listen, after the match, how about if we get a Polaroid together, okay?
You're in trouble, man. I can believe the superhuman strength of Thunder Lips. I am the man. Stop it, Winnie. You want this punching bag, Adrian? Rocky! Catch me!
Wasn't even supposed to be in Rocky III. His bosses told him don't, and he did it anyway. And it brightened his star power in Hollywood. Soon he was doing it all.
Tough is a 300-pound man in tights.
Keep the back straight. Make the arms a bow.
Ah, the ballet. It enhances grace. I'm a changed man.
Ah! Hey! Put me down, you klutz!
I'm not a klutz anymore, Bertinsky. Oh!
He's not as far along as I thought.
With the WWF rocked by a steroid scandal, Hulk went full Hollywood. He was even doing commercials because Hogan could sell anything, especially deodorant.
In trying to make an artistic statement, one should be careful not to let one's personal aroma do the talking. In order not to offend the critics, I recommend Right Guard Sports Stick. It provides maximum protection and the freshest scents, a sublime palette of odoriferous emanations. After all, a true artiste should be remembered for his inspiration, not his perspiration. Right Guard.
After a stint in Hollywood, he was back in the ring with a new look. He shook up the wrestling universe when he ditched McMahon and he went to a competitor. And not only did the ratings follow him, but so did the names. Hulk was bringing out Dennis Rodman and a box of cigars every night.
The opening moments of WCW Monday Nitro. Hulk Hogan, Dennis Rodman, together, Eric Bischoff in tow. And two men who will form a gigantic tag team at the main event at Bash of the Beach.
The wrestling war soon fizzled out, and Hogan was back in the WWE. With age and spine surgeries catching up and disagreements over the direction of the company, Hogan went to reality TV.
Hey, no monkeying around. I need total silence here. Brother, check this out. I'm going to read something to you.
At his best in the biggest moments, but nothing was bigger than his heart. Hulk may be gone, but that raw power, electric personality, and unbreakable spirit is going to live on in American culture forever. He's touched generations.
Road nose, brother.
Well, I need to.
No, let me tell you something, brother. When you walk in this beat shop, I'm surprised that you still got the shirt on, Jack.
Well, I need to tell you something. Hulkster, the first time I met you, I was only 3 years old, but now I'm 6 years old. So now we gotta take it to a bigger level, man. So what are they gonna do when the power of the Hulkster and the roaster and the dual 24-inch pythons run wild on you?
Whoa!
18 months ago, Hogan was baptized. And of course, he wore his iconic bandana. The Hulkster says that moment blessed his life.
Once you're a Christian, you've accepted Christ as your Savior. You know, you're not going to perish, but you're going to have everlasting life. That belief in itself and that faith is what's pretty much the only thing that's real to me.
Hogan may have left us, but Hulkamania is always going to be running wild. We'll keep that flag and carry it for you. To Hulk, no matter who you are or where you came from in this country, you were his brother. From all of us, rest in peace, brother.
With another story tonight surrounding the corrupt media mob, and this is critical. This week, Our years of reporting has once again, it's not the first time, been totally corroborated and confirmed. And thanks to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, newly declassified documents, there is now irrefutable truth that the Trump-Russia collusion hoax was a phony political hit job right from the very beginning. A terrible lie created by Democrats and government officials to discredit Donald Trump's 2016 victory, malign his presidency. Took 3 years of his first term. He had to deal with this crap, these lies. But none of this would have been possible without the Trump-hating conspiracy theorists that call themselves journalists, and they're anything but, on almost pretty much every other outlet. So-called reporters, they were parroting the Russia collusion hoax as a legitimate news story. No questions asked, no research done, no skepticism of their sources. They were more than willing accomplices peddling the lies and the conspiracy theories. They were more than happy to trash Trump, upend our republic, because they were angry about the results of the 2016 election. Now, this was the foundation for what ultimately would culminate in the death of the legacy media mob. They died November 5th of last year. You know, some claim that Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian disinformation dossier was completely verified. It was completely corroborated. That was another lie. Even after the dossier was debunked, they stood by the lie. The dossier, that's the dossier that falsely claimed, remember, that Donald Trump was with hookers at the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow, and they were urinating on him. An insane lie. And then there were others who even told their viewers that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. The hysteria of dishonesty was off the charts. Let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? Take a look.
Certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion between the campaign and Russia.
U.S. authorities are seeing if those emails we just talked about are connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
This president needs to be impeached. I believe that. I believe there was collusion.
Mr. Trump is seeing more and more of the walls closing in on him, which is why he is becoming increasingly desperate.
The presidency is effectively a Russian op, right? You know, partisan warfare between Republicans and Democrats. This is international warfare against our country.
This is evidence of willingness to commit collusion.
Specifically, Willie, I think what it means is that a federal judge found that people in Trump's organization were colluding with the Russians.
This cloud about collusion with Russia will hang over him no matter where he stands.
I personally think it's over. I don't think there's anything that can be done that can stop this at this point. Cacophony, this gushing of lies, problems, questions, chaos that will stop this presidency in its tracks.
It does look like collusion. It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence. And frankly, I've never seen that before.
No, this is evidence that they are all corrupt liars, complicit, basically talking heads, an extension of the DNC press office. That's all it's evidence of. And because none of it was remotely true. Conspiracy theorists, Rachel Maddow, Humpty Dumpty, Fake Jake Tapper, you know, the whole group of them, and the hundreds of other so-called journalists that are not journalists. They're talk shows, but they're not honest about what they do. They reported this hoax day in and day out, year in, year out. Where's their apology? Where's the retraction? They manipulated their viewers for reckless political gain to advance their own political agenda, and now they just want to move on. Is it any wonder they lied about the border with no problems at all? The border's closed, the border's secure. Joe Biden is so cognitively sharp. Meanwhile, the guy's in a steep cognitive decline. Inflation is transitory. Is it any surprise that the lies continue today? Is it any surprise that with all they threw at Donald Trump leading into the election in 24, the American people had already determined that they're not trustworthy? You cannot believe them because they spread lies like the Russia hoax and every other lie that they told about Donald Trump. Who would ever trust them again? That's why in 2007, I said journalism is dead. After this past election, presidential election, I said the legacy state-run media mob is dead. Fake news CNN, they wouldn't even show the full Tulsi Gabbard press conference detailing the intelligence community's findings when she declassified those documents. They muted the director of national intelligence. They cut away. They started trashing the entire Trump administration, which is pretty much what they do every single second, every minute, every hour of every 24-hour day. Take a look.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc.
This is why I say I don't even think CNN will make it another 3 years, 5 years. They won't be around. They have chased everybody away. Nobody trusts them and nobody should trust them. Fake news CNN spent day after day after day for years covering the Russia hoax nonstop, just like MSDNC, the New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS. But now the truth has finally been revealed and backed up by U.S. intelligence and declassified documents. Fake news CNN, suddenly no longer believes that this story is worth their time. Not at all. It was only good when they could tell a lie about the story, not the truth about the story. You know, fake Russian disinformation bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. Was that worth reporting? Real U.S. intelligence from career officials isn't worth reporting? Okay, those are called editorial decisions. That's also called, bias. Take a look.
Tulsi Gabbard, who is speaking at this moment, as you can see there on screen in the White House briefing room. There's no better way to get back in the good graces, or try at least to do so, than embrace one of the president's largely conspiracy theories and just favorite old tropes going back to the 2016 campaign.
But I do think that she does make Republicans nervous because of her background and lack of seriousness. And if there is something that happens in this country, I'm not sure that they trust her.
Tulsi Gabbard is simply an opportunist in this play, right? Her star is falling. Her analysis was thrown out the window on Iran. She embarrassed herself with that somewhat bizarre video about nuclear weapons in Japan. And so she's using this as an opportunity to get herself back into favor with the White House.
If this is the level of intelligence that we're getting from the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, on this subject, it makes you wonder about what else we're going to get from them.
And it gets worse. One analyst at Fake News CNN actually declaring the Trump administration was aiding Russia by reporting the truth. Okay, I guess old habits die hard. Take a look.
What I don't appreciate is that these are cherry-picked examples, that they are quibbling, angels dancing on the head of a pin. When we have volumes of reporting, you're always going to find one report that's different. Okay, whatever. The big message here for Americans, Russia tried to interfere in our election processes with the point of undermining our confidence in our democracy. And by bringing this up again, the Trump administration is doing the work of our adversary, Russia.
What Americans don't appreciate is when you contradict things that are demonstrably false. There was a similar trend across all the networks. The bombshell information presented by the DNI either ignored or quickly discredited. We saw the exact same thing with Biden's cognitive decline. First, they told us not to believe our lying eyes. Remember the allegations when you saw Joe in a massive decline. Those are cheap fake videos. They ignored the glaring issues and accused us of disseminating disinformation. And finally, when Joe was long gone, let's write a book about it, make some money. No responsibility for their role in this cover-up, how complicit they were. And now many are wondering why few Americans trust them at all. And breaking today, Biden's former chief of staff, Ron Klain, actually sat with House investigators for 5 whopping hours answering questions about his role in the cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. He defended the former president, but he admitted that even Hillary Clinton raised questions about Joe's mental fitness by 2024. Maybe she should have done so honestly in public. At the very same time, the media mob was still accusing us of cheap fakes. Karine Jean-Pierre talking point, for playing very real videos, not doctored at all, of Biden struggling to perform even the most basic tasks, never mind communicate. Americans weren't fooled. And in November, they sent Democrats packing and the media mob an important message: we will never trust you again. You have lost our trust. Sadly, that message has fallen on deaf ears.
And it wasn't just some small story. It was a relentless narrative that actually ruined lives. What they did to all of us with this hoax is unforgivable, and it demands justice. And now they want us to forget that they ever said this.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election.
Russia hacked the election.
All of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election.
If you can get them to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get them to accept who won the Civil War.
Like Macaulay Culkin, that hasn't aged well. But every single legacy news outlet ran with bogus headlines. And who could forget our favorite Mark Cuban impersonator, who found a new crush in this guy, Kalimnik.
This guy, Kalimnik, keeps turning up again and again. Konstantin Kalimnik, Konstantin Kalimnik, Konstantin Kalimnik, Konstantin Kalimnik. He's still Russian military intelligence. Kalimnik, a short man who goes by Kostya. Konstantin Kalimnik, investigating Konstantin Kalimnik for espionage. This guy, Konstantin Kalimnik, is the key that unlocks that door. It seems like it would have to be.
If I didn't know any better, I think she'd have the hots for that guy. But it's hard to believe that this was taken seriously. But no wonder they want everyone to forget it. They're like a drunk coworker who wakes up the next day hoping his pals forget that he went home with the office hunchback. But while Trump was framed, these hacks earned a living off it, wrote books, even won awards. It was the biggest scam since those pills I bought that promised to make me taller. The New York Times and Washington Post won Pulitzers for spreading the hoax. So false reporting gets you the industry's most coveted prize. It's like Leah Thomas being named Female Athlete of the Year just because she could fill her urine sample cup from 4 feet away. So today, the media is like a junkie that made your life hell for 10 years. And now suddenly they claim it's all behind them. And it's only because they just ran out of drugs. So should you forget the hell that they put you through? No, we can't let this go. They need to make serious amends because we're still living with the aftermath. People lost jobs, careers, friends. There needs to be consequences. When you call the laptop from hell Russian disinformation, weaponize the DOJ against Trump, or cover up the decline of an invalid, there needs to be scalps, especially from Elizabeth Warren. Just for the irony. So now the media claims that the Trump administration is trying to rewrite history. These claims are an attempt to shift culpability away from themselves and hide the lie they perpetuated for almost a decade. They played the starring role in amplifying a subversive plot against the president of the United States. They owe a lot of people an apology. Hell, they even include Putin. Think about that. You know you must have done something really, really bad when you've wronged even a murderous dictator. In high school, he was voted most likely to still look like he's in high school. Host of the Guy Benson Show, Guy Benson.
Tonight's angle.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior? We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this. For even former President Obama? Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Her presentation was measured and methodical. And today, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, appearing in the White House briefing room, explained what led to this criminal referral regarding Obama's involvement in the Russia hoax.
DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee oversight report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama.
And that, of course, begs the question, will anyone be held accountable? Now, recall Obama's reaction yesterday. He brushed off Trump's allegations of treason by claiming that everyone, including Marco Rubio, then on the Senate Intel Committee, believed Russia had tried to influence the election. Director Gabbard addressed this as well.
I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you and the media to conduct honest journalism and the American people to see for yourself in the documents that we've released now, close to 200 pages, that point in multiple references, multiple examples, to include comments that have been made by senior intelligence professionals who are some still working within these agencies today that confirm the conclusions that we have drawn, that President Obama directed an intelligence community assessment to be created to further this contrived false narrative that ultimately led to a years-long coup to try to undermine President Trump's presidency.
So the point being, the alleged crime here was not saying that Russia wanted to influence the election. It was directing a new intel assessment based on the phony dossier in order to hobble the Trump presidency from day one. It went on for years, really, leaving many Americans in the 2020 election cycle to believe that Putin essentially put Trump in office. So if you're voting to re-elect Trump, you were voting for Putin. And that, basically Trump was just a Russian stooge. And Obama will, of course, dispute all of this. He's going to say he was just trying to get at the truth and that Trump and his supporters are trying to deflect from Epstein with a new conspiracy. And the press, of course, is already helping with that.
What would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
The only people who are suggesting that the director of national intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet. And it is not working.
Of course, the press played its starring role in the 2016 and 2020 elections, most buying lock, stock, and barrel that Trump somehow colluded with Putin. And now they don't want to admit that they were wrong, that they didn't do their jobs. And by the way, they're still not doing their jobs. Today, we learned that during the campaign, DNI Gabbard says the Russian spy agency had information alleging that Hillary had huge mental health problems.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Well, we reached out to Hillary Clinton's office, and we have yet to hear back.
Fox News alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House Intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama. There were 4 key elements from the assessment that were repeated over and over again and formed the basis of the Russia hoax and the Robert Mueller witch hunt. 1, that Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to win. 2, Putin took action to help Trump win. 3, the Russians had blackmail on Trump. That was the Steele dossier. And 4, that the Russians tried colluding with the Trump campaign. None of any of this was ever true. There was no reliable intelligence to support any of these allegations. Senior CIA officials repeatedly refused to traffic in these allegations, but they were repeatedly overruled by CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey, who insisted that they be pushed, even without verifiable evidence. The Obama administration cherry-picked the intelligence, lied about their sources, misquoted sources, didn't corroborate their claims, suppressed intelligence that ran counter to their narratives, and even used anonymous internet postings. Rank and file CIA admitted what they were doing violated their own tradecraft standards. There was a massive pressure campaign that came right from the top. CIA analysts say they received unusual directives from political appointees, the CIA director, and Obama himself. This is how the Russia hoax was born.
Donald Trump knows that the Russians helped him win in 2016.
Putin hated Secretary Clinton so much that the flip side of that coin was he had a clear preference for the person running against the person he hated so much.
It was Russia in a very systematic way and tried to interfere in the election and to try to advance the prospects of Donald Trump being elected.
This was such a malicious disinformation campaign perpetrated on the American people that at one point, 60% of Democrats believed the Russians hacked our voting machines to help Trump win the White House. What this report actually shows is that the Russians just wanted to create chaos and undermine Americans' faith in democracy. Solid intelligence suggested that Vladimir Putin didn't care who won. He had no preference. But like most people, expected Hillary to win and had a little docket of compromising dirt on her, dirt that he never released. Now, if Putin wanted Trump to win, why didn't Putin drop the dirt?
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump.
Now, if Clinton was on tranquilizers like the Russians believed, why didn't they leak it to help Trump win?
How credible was the information about Hillary Clinton's health?
All I have seen is what the Intelligence Committee have reported through their investigation. I think the underlying point there is that we understand from intelligence what Russia said that they had. And the important point here is that if they were trying to influence the election, as President Obama and James Clapper and John Brennan, everybody said they were doing in order to support Donald Trump's election, they would have released the most damning of that information.
Obama and his spy chiefs knew that Putin didn't prefer Trump over Hillary, but they cooked the intelligence to make it look like he did. Obama and his intel spies knew that Putin didn't collude with Trump and that he didn't even direct his people to help Trump win. But they put it out there anyway. In a sense, Barack Obama did exactly what Putin wanted, undermined Americans' faith in free and fair elections and caused chaos in our country. Barack Obama, the CIA, and the FBI were the ones doing what our enemy wanted.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former
The
President
evidence,
Obama?
correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Even 2 years later, after the election, Barack Obama was still pushing a hoax he knew wasn't true. And he knew it wasn't true because he helped manufacture it.
They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? They're cozying up to the former head of the KGB. Actively blocking legislation that would defend our elections from Russian attack. What happened?
Now, I don't know if it's possible to indict a former president for actions he took while in office. I'm not a lawyer, proudly. But Brennan, Comey, and others may have severe liability. Trey Gowdy says we know for a fact that Brennan committed perjury when he lied to Congress.
Director Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
I don't.
You know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
Well, that's a lie. Whatever happens to these guys is not revenge. It's accountability. And it's time for people to pay the price.
And welcome to Hannity. And we start tonight with a Fox News alert. Justice is coming. A bombshell announcement from the Attorney General Pam Bondi. The DOJ is now launching a strike force to investigate the possible criminal weaponization of the intelligence community under Barack Hussein Obama. Now, this comes only hours after the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, released even more damning evidence against the former Obama administration. And tonight, that is our top story, a very real scandal surrounding a very fake hoax that makes Watergate, frankly, look like a walk in the park. Trump-Russia collusion was a fantasy, a complete lie, phony, false conspiracy theory fed to Democrats and, of course, perpetuated by the state-run legacy media mob, by the most corrupt administration in modern history. Now, confirmation from the Director of National Intelligence. Nearly a decade ago, the Obama White House reportedly used the full force of your federal government to delegitimize the results of the 2016 election, malign the then President-elect Donald Trump before he even took office. And it was all based on lies cobbled together with an actual Russian disinformation, dirty dossier bought and paid for by Donald Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, right here on this program, we sounded the alarm. We sounded it in 2016, 2017, 2018, and ever since. We reported the facts. We told the truth. We broke the news. And all the while, so-called journalists on other outlets pushed nothing but a salacious hoax. They peddled nothing but lies and conspiracy theories, of course, led by fake news, CNN, MSDNC, and all the major networks. Take a look.
Look, I think that the president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump. The question is, did Mr. Trump cooperate?
Unlike President Trump, he has no doubt the Russians hacked the election.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
The legacy media definitively lied. All one big lie. Now, there's no debate. Today's newly declassified material from DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard paints a very clear web of corruption that leads all the way back to former President Barack Obama himself. Now, it all started with Hillary Clinton losing the 2016 election, and even before, no one in the Democratic Party actually saw Donald Trump winning. They thought Hillary Clinton had this in the bag. As it turns out, so did Russia. That's why, according to U.S. intelligence, Putin allegedly held on to potentially damaging information about Hillary until after the election. The Russians reportedly wanted to use this material to embarrass a, quote, President Clinton, which never happened. Take a look.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
And that's not all. According to Gabbard, there were also allegations about Clinton's mental state that Russia withheld during the campaign. Look at this.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
All right, based on intel reports declassified by Gabbard in 2016, you had career intelligence officials, in other words, rank and file officials. They did not believe that Putin was working at all to elect Donald Trump, or that Russia even wanted Trump to win. But that didn't stop former CIA director, far-left hack John Brennan from making up an entirely different story. Take a look for yourself.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous.
So Brennan used Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian disinformation dossier to create an alternative reality about the 2016 election, even though it was well known that the dossier was pure garbage. They were warned as early as August of 2016, do not trust it. It is political. And here's where it gets really interesting. Take a look.
On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump.
As it turns out, that new guidance, according to Gabbard, was coming from the top. Take a look.
On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee oversight report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama,
Wow. Per the president's request. Now, based on Gabbard's findings, it was Obama who allegedly demanded that new report that tied Trump to Russia, regardless of the facts on the ground, regardless of what the intelligence community came up with. Well, let's just redo it and rewrite history and make it in a way that will go after the next president. Obama's right-hand man at the CIA, John Brennan, then overruled the senior career intelligence officers that had it right in order to publish this fake smear against President Trump. Take a look.
The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, "We don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected." Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, "We assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him." End of quote.
So they basically took the real intelligence and flipped it completely on its head so they can come up with this narrative about Donald Trump. At the very core of this new bogus intel report was the dirty Russian disinformation dossier, as we said, bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump's opponent, and the DNC. Take a look.
With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, "Contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway."
Now, to be very clear, according to everything you just heard, the nonpartisan director of the CIA threw out the real intelligence report, replaced it with a phony intelligence report filled with bogus information, again, with the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dirty Russian disinformation dossier, and that was paid for her in 2016. We've gone over that in great detail many times on this program. Apparently, according to Tulsi Gabbard and the newly declassified documents, Brennan did all of this at the behest of then President Barack Obama. Earlier today, we did reach out for comment from Brennan, Obama, and Hillary Clinton. We've yet to hear back. But this is, government corruption at its very worst. The dishonesty, almost unbelievable. They sabotaged a duly elected president, undermined an election. And if you watch this program, well, you are getting the truth. When the rest of the state-run legacy media mob, as usual, were dead wrong. We told you the truth from the beginning. Take a look. Hillary Clinton actually colluded with Russia by paying, millions and millions of dollars for that fake news dossier, Russian propaganda, Russian collusion to smear Donald Trump. And she tried to influence you, the American people, to swing the election with those lies. Ironically, Hillary's the one that colluded with Russia with a phony Russian misinformation dossier. 3.5 years, Donald Trump colluded with Russia. The only one that colluded with Russia and bought a dirty Russian dossier was Hillary Clinton. And they used that unverified to spy on a presidential candidate and a president. Only at $1 for every time I said it. In contrast, you still are not getting the truth from fake news CNN, which cut away from DNI Tulsi Gabbard's historic remarks in the White House briefing room.
All right. I can see the coupon special worked. Happy Wednesday.
Rules of government, rules of conduct didn't apply to her.
Can you tell me the story of how you decided to delete 33,000 emails and how that deletion was executed?
Well, let's start from the beginning. Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, there was no regulation, there was nothing that did not give me the full authority to decide how I was going to communicate.
Typical Clinton. Depends on what the meaning of the word permitted is. The truth is, what she did stunk to high heaven. The State Department Inspector General concluded her private server located in her bathroom didn't automatically archive her emails and violated the intent of the Federal Records Act. But that's not all. The National Archives and Records Administration said her use of a private email was also improper. Then there was a potential violation of 18 U.S.C. 793 involving the handling of classified information because her system was not secure. Dozens of emails later found on her server were retroactively marked classified, some at the top secret level. Now, she didn't bother getting State Department permission either to use her private server, violating her own department's rules. Then the biggie, destruction of federal records under 18 U.S.C. 2071. But she claims the 33,000 emails she deleted were all personal.
We went through a thorough process to identify all of my work-related emails and deliver them to the State Department. At the end, I chose not to keep my private personal emails, emails about planning Chelsea's wedding or my mother's funeral arrangements, condolence notes to friends, as well as yoga routines, family vacations, the other things you typically find in inboxes.
Of course, I don't know about you, but I don't want to think about Hillary and yoga at all. Of course, there was no way, though, of confirming any of what she said. Emails were gone. Maybe Hillary was so brazen, though, because she knew that she'd always get bailed out by her friends.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. Prosecutors necessarily weigh a number of factors before deciding whether to bring charges. There are obvious considerations like the strength of the evidence, especially regarding intent. Responsible decisions also consider the context of a person's actions and how similar situations have been handled in the past.
Well, now, it looks like his big investigation missed quite a bit. Newly declassified documents show that Comey and company failed to ask and follow up on key questions. Senator Grassley's report cites an extreme lack of effort and due diligence in the investigation of Hillary's private server and email handling. Here's the kicker. The FBI obtained thumb drives involving Hillary's servers, but Comey and others at the FBI failed to perform additional targeted searches of the drives. The thumb drives reportedly were never reviewed during the investigation, but contained highly sensitive information exfiltrated from U.S. government agencies, including the Department of State, as well as then President Barack Obama's emails and potentially congressional information. Oh, this gets better and better. So who was part of the FBI, crack FBI team that conveniently didn't do the digging themselves into these thumb drives? Because those are really complicated, the thumb drives. Well, in addition to Comey, it was like old home week. It was then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe and FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, along with others. Come on, it all makes sense now. But this was all a joke to Hillary.
Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something? No, well, no.
How it works digitally? Did you try to wipe the whole server?
I don't know how it works digitally at all.
I have other people do that for me. She just wanted to carry one phone. It was nothing more, nothing less.
When I got to work as Secretary of State, I opted for convenience to use my personal email account, which was allowed by the State Department, because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two.
But as usual, the truth is always elusive with the Clintons, because there were many more devices than the two phones. Try 13 devices she used to send emails. But where did they all go? Well, her lawyers at Williams & Connolly could not locate them. Maybe because they were smashed with hammers. One aide, Justin Cooper, told the FBI that he did recall 2 instances where he destroyed Clinton's old mobile devices by breaking them in half or hitting them with a hammer. Trump always knew the truth.
I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
And if I had to do it over again, I would obviously do it differently. But I'm not going to make any excuses. It was a mistake, and I take responsibility for that.
No, a mistake? Cute. That's cute. But Hillary likely knew she had political allies at the top, so didn't worry. In his tedious memoir, Comey raised questions about then AG Loretta Lynch, remember her, about her impartiality or lack thereof toward Mrs. Clinton, because her direction was that he called the inquiry into the email server a matter instead of what it was, an investigation. Now, the more we learn about the Clintons and the Obamas, I mean, all these years later, that was a decade ago, guys. But the worse it always gets. But that's what happens when you let the sunlight in. That's what Trump promised to do. And especially on the biggest scandal of them all, Obama and his intel chiefs, when they allegedly manipulated intel assessments to advance the absurd story that Trump was somehow compromised by the Russians.
Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group.
They all worked to subvert an election, and then when the unthinkable happened, Donald Trump won, they hoped they could still hobble his presidency. And remember, everything they did also bled into the 2020 campaign. Because of Obama, there were far-reaching repercussions from the Russia collusion fraud.
Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason.
That got Obama's attention. He called Trump's comments ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction, adding, nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intel Committee, led by then-chairman Marco Rubio. Come on. Obama, Hillary, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Strzok, Page, Rice, all of them knew exactly what they were doing. The semantic game, President Obama, will not bail you out here. The phony Steele dossier, the FISA court misrepresentations, the hounding of poor Carter Page and George Papadopoulos, come on. The letter from the intel chiefs, it was all a fraud. Now, whatever the DOJ ultimately decides to do with all of this, well, it's up to them. But I think history will ultimately judge all of this for what it was. If you were friends with the Obamas, if you were pals with the Clintons, they protected you. If you weren't, they tried to destroy you. And that's the angle.
Yesterday, Joe Biden sent Hunter on a search and destroy mission to 86 the party that cooed him. Hunter says Obama's cabal is filled with washed-up has-beens who cost his daddy re-election. And he struck a nerve because the Chicago boys came out firing at the big guy and the little guy.
It's 3 hours of Hunter playing the victim, and he like rages at us, and he rages at Axelrod and Clooney.
You were a liability. You should be ashamed of the ways in which you made your father's political life worse. And like the idea that we're going to listen to you now, like give me a break.
These Obama guys covered up for Hunter for 4 years, covered up the laptop, said there was no crime there, said he was just an addict who loved his daddy. And now they call him a sleazy liability. And now they're also like, also, your dad was sleepy.
Hunter's on a tour right now. And just going forward, I think the lesson to learn is because hopefully we're not going to have an 80-something-year-old geriatric candidate again.
There's some other weird like he said he blames the debate on the Biden staff, saying they gave him Ambien on his foreign trip. But like Biden got back from the G7 on June 14th. The debate was June 27th.
A lot
like,
of Ambien.
If Ambien was the issue, like I don't think it's Ambien, it's age.
Joe is a lucky skeleton who stumbled into the White House with a sack full of COVID mail-in ballots. And the left was pumped because they could just auto-pen their wish list into law during nap time. But Otto Penn Jr.'s on the warpath, and he's calling the Obama boys grifters, still dining out on the Messiah's legacy. Then the Obama bros went low, and I mean real low. They compared Hunter to the monster himself.
It's just
Yeah.
utter lack of self-awareness.
It's the shamelessness that really gets you in the end.
Well, I saw one quote. He said, we all talk about the incredible popularity of Barack Obama. Barack Obama never got more than 69 million votes. My dad got 81 million votes. Like, dude, now you sound like Donald Trump.
George Clooney's not an actor. The low-rated Jake Tapper. It's amazing to watch people become the thing that they claim to be the savior from.
After they lost in a landslide, the best and brightest Democrat minds said they needed their own Trump. Then Hunter busts back onto the scene and starts laying the wood to the establishment like Trump did in 2016. And they all circled the wagons around the establishment like Barack Obama was Jeb Bush. And now the whole party's running for cover.
So these comments yesterday by Hunter Biden going after a wide swath of people in the Democratic Party, are those productive at the moment?
I missed it. I'm not tuned in to Hunter's ravings.
Senator, do you have any reaction to the Hunter Biden clip yesterday?
No, I haven't. I don't pay attention to what Hunter Biden says.
I understand the personal pain that Hunter Biden is experiencing on all sorts of fronts, but I don't think it's constructive right now to engage in this backward-looking, finger-pointing.
Well, ignoring the problem isn't going to make it go away. There's a growing insurgency on the left. You got the bitter Biden faction and the squad and their commie Mondami wing. There's a civil war brewing, and every Democrat's getting drafted, whether they like it or not. No one is safe.
is serving a sentence for conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse minors. Correspondent David Spunt has details tonight. Good evening, Dave.
Brett, good evening. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys praised Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch and the Justice Department for meeting with her in person today, not far from that prison at a federal courthouse in Tallahassee. Now, the courthouse was just miles from where Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence behind bars. The discussion lasted for several hours, and while the DOJ is not commenting on what was said, Maxwell's attorney gave us some details.
He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped. She never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability.
But, Brett, legal experts question whether Maxwell told her version of the truth or the actual truth. We have some recent photos snapped by Fox Digital of Maxwell outside that Florida prison on a run.
I think the reason you send someone like Blanch instead of an assistant U.S. attorney is because you want to show Maxwell that the government is serious about making some kind of deal. Maxwell's not going to say a single word. She has no incentive to say a single word unless she gets some kind of benefit.
And tonight we're awaiting decisions from two federal judges in New York who will decide if they will release grand jury transcripts from investigations involving both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's cases there. Epstein died in prison in 2019 before ever going to trial on sex trafficking. Yesterday, a Florida judge indicated she would not release the grand jury material in Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008. That judge says her hands are tied, as anything to do with a grand jury in the American court system, Brett, typically, as we know, kept close and secretive. Back to you.
David, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's bring in John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, now a law professor at UC Berkeley. John, great to have you with us. I'll start with the question that David Spunt raised. Highly unusual for someone in Todd Blanch's position to go down there and speak to a convict for sexual trafficking.
It's extraordinary. In fact, I can't think of another time in the history of the country where something like this has happened. Right? Todd Blanch is the right-hand man to the Attorney General, the top federal law enforcement officer of the entire United States. I worked for a Deputy Attorney General. I clerked for another judge who had been Deputy Attorney General. They never said ever that when they were in those jobs, they would go down and meet with any suspect, any witness, or anybody who's actually been convicted and serving time. These people are way up at the top of our justice system, and they're reaching all the way down to intervene on a matter which would usually just be handled by assistant U.S. attorney and FBI agents. I think that's a sign of how seriously now the Trump administration is taking this, how much I think they're worried that people are losing faith in the integrity of the Justice Department leadership, that they would take someone of such high standing and have them personally participate in interviewing someone like this.
Okay, so why is the question? Why is Todd Blanch talking to Ghislaine Maxwell? And clearly, she has an incentive to try to get herself out of this prison, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the reason you send someone like Blanch instead of an assistant U.S. attorney is because you want to show Maxwell that the government is serious about making some kind of deal. Maxwell's not going to say a single word. She has no incentive to say a single word unless she gets some kind of benefit. She might be hoping for a commutation of her sentence to time served. She might even be hoping for a pardon, or at the very least, she might hope to be moved to a better facility that'd be less restrictive than the one she's in now. You send Blanch because the Justice Department is saying, we're serious about this. We may actually cut a deal. But on the other hand, Maxwell's a convicted sex offender. Why would we take anything she says seriously? She's not to be trusted. She doesn't have credibility. So that's why you also send the Deputy Attorney General.
Yeah, as Virginia Giuffre said about this, Epstein was Pinocchio and Ghislaine was Geppetto pulling the strings. We'll see where this goes. John Yoo, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Martha.
Ghislaine Maxwell's sit-down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch comes as pressure builds across party lines for answers. The battle for information leading House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer to issue a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before his panel.
Next month, lawmakers will head to the prison where Maxwell is right now serving a 20-year sentence to hear exactly what she has to say. We have live Fox News team coverage for you. Jonathan Turley is here on that in moments.
But we begin with our David Spott. He's live here in Washington with the latest on this meeting between Todd Blanch and Ghislaine Maxwell. Dave?
Well, hey, John, good to be with you. It's not clear exactly what time this meeting began today, how long it will go, or even what they're talking about, though. Clearly, we'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear that conversation. But Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch is meeting with the former girlfriend and convicted co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. As we mentioned, it's happening at the courthouse in Tallahassee. This is not far from the prison where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence behind bars. Again, what's being discussed, we don't know. The Justice Department not commenting about any of the meeting details. But we do have some recent photos snapped by Fox Digital of Ghislaine Maxwell recently outside the Florida prison on a run or a walk. Now, her attorney says that she'll tell the truth. But the question has to be asked, at what price? Is there a deal to be cut with the Justice Department? Again, DOJ officials not even commenting on that possibility. But that question has been asked and will be asked many times in the future. In more Maxwell news, as we mentioned, House Oversight Chairman James Comer issued that formal subpoena for her to testify in a prison deposition regarding her role in what she may know in Epstein's crimes. Now, she could take the Fifth Amendment and keep quiet. Here's Comer.
August 11th is the date when we hope to depose Maxwell in that prison facility in Tallahassee.
And yesterday, a Florida federal judge says she will not release grand jury material in Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008. The judge says her hands are tied, as anything to do with a grand jury in the American court system is typically kept close to the vest and secretive. But John and Sandra, we are still awaiting decisions from judges on grand jury transcripts from the New York Jeffrey Epstein and the New York Ghislaine Maxwell cases. Those could come at any time. This was a request by Attorney General Pam Bondi in the name of transparency. But again, judges will typically rule against releasing grand jury material, as I'm sure Professor Turley will mention soon, if you ask him. Back to you.
But I'm sure, and we will ask him that, I'm sure that the professor will also agree that there are exceptions to the rule based on a compelling interrogatory. We'll see. David, thank you. Give us more details of this meeting when you can. Appreciate it. Sandra?
All right, Jonathan Turley's here, constitutional law attorney, professor at George Washington University and Fox News contributor. So jump on in there with these questions, Jonathan, as this meeting is happening right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, Sandra, one of the interesting aspects about this meeting is that Blanch may be the first Department of Justice official to interview Maxwell. I was under the impression, the reporting previously was that she had spoken to investigators. After all, there were numerous state and federal investigations into this scandal. I was told by a member of her legal team that she has never been interviewed by the Justice Department. And that does raise the question of whether she is an untapped source of information. So this is a much more significant interview than many of us might have anticipated. The assumption is that if she had something to trade, she would have done it already. I mean, the expiration date on this milk is long past because she's already been sentenced to 20 years, and you would think she would have come forward and say, look, I've got something here that's worth a trade. But she is making many people feel uncomfortable today because she is someone who may have a lot of information that simply has not been revealed.
Yeah, and her brother is suggesting that she will be putting forward new evidence. He tells the New York Post, quote, she will be putting before the court material new evidence that was not available to the defense at her 2021 trial, which would have had a significant impact on its outcome. All right, so this is also Maxwell's attorney responding to all of this on BBC. She would testify truthfully, as she always has said she would. As for the congressional subpoena, Ms. Maxwell is taking this one step at a time. She looks forward to her meeting with the Department of Justice, and that discussion will help inform how she proceeds. I guess we're really left wondering, I mean, is this just a little bit of new information, or is she sitting on a mountain of new evidence?
Well, that's the intriguing aspect, because most of us assumed that she had been interviewed repeatedly. That's what the legal team is now saying has not actually occurred. And of all of the people that would have the goods, essentially, on this scandal, it is Maxwell. I mean, with the exception of Epstein himself, she was this ubiquitous presence. She's in all of these pictures. She's just in the background. That is always your most dangerous witness, someone who is unseen but always there. And the question is, does she have something that would be material for a criminal prosecution? Not just embarrassing. Obviously, there's going to be lots of embarrassing information. But what we're probably going to find out through Congress as well as the Department of Justice is whether indeed she has something more that has never been revealed.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line in your piece, The Mystery of Ghislaine Maxwell. Does Epstein's associate have an untold story? Before you go, Professor Turley, I want to go back to our conversation yesterday on Tulsi Gabbard. She showed up at the White House press briefing yesterday. She shook things up, citing this new declassified intel that shows the Obama administration was politicizing intelligence. Jason Chaffetz joined you and went off on this on America Reports yesterday. Listen.
Anytime I've ever heard of somebody lying to a court, the court takes care of itself. There are repercussions to that. So when the government lies to the FISA court, where is Chief Justice Roberts on this? Where is the court? How come the court is not going back? I'm not an attorney. Jonathan Turley's going to have to take this. Why isn't the court demanding that there are repercussions for those people that they bogusly signed these warrants?
And then we ran out of time and the show was over. So can we get your response, sir? Where is the court on this?
Well, Jason has a very good point here, and he's walked the walk. He's been there in Congress and trying to get this information. And it does appear that a couple of these figures may have committed perjury. I think the most vulnerable may be Brennan, who's like a 30-point buck now out in the open. I mean, this stuff goes directly to information that he gave to Congress. It seems to be in contradiction. And so there are real questions here. I mean, people talk about, well, you can't charge Obama. That's very likely the case. He's probably protected. But these individuals, whether it's Comey or Brennan, are not protected from perjury charges if the statute of limitations has not run. They are more likely to be called again to repeat prior testimony.
Professor Trilly, we always appreciate when you can join us. Thank you so much. And good to have you actually finish your thought on that.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right.
Meantime, a meeting is now underway at a Florida courthouse in Tallahassee between Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, and the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch. The House Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before that panel next month. Lawmakers will head to the prison where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence to hear what she has to say. Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett is on the House Oversight Committee. We'll get to Joe Biden in just a moment, but let's start on the Maxwell-Blanch meeting that's happening right now in Florida. And the question that I have for you is, you were pushing this resolution for a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell to give a deposition before the House Oversight Committee. What do you want to know from her, Congressman?
Well, I wrote Chairman Comer a letter a couple of weeks ago, and in fact, we passed the resolution in the subcommittee of oversight and to get that subpoena, and Chairman Comer graciously agreed to follow through with it. Yeah, I would hope that we could get to the bottom of it. I want to know the money trail. I want to know who employed, was Epstein a foreign agent, who are his benefactors. I want to know the way that they access these children. I want to know names of the people that were involved. I don't care about people who flew on his dadgum plane. President Trump has stated multiple times he flew on his plane. As a matter of fact, he banned that dirtbag from Mar-a-Lago over 15 years ago. I'm tired of hearing people trying to pin Trump to it. Trump has been out front saying that he knew the guy, and he banned him from Mar-a-Lago. They knew each other. They ran in the same circles. It's just like me. I know a lot of dirtbags myself. But I would hope that we could follow the money trail and just see where it all leads. And hopefully in all this, and I warn people, we need to protect the name of the innocent. And they were children at the time that were raped, over 1,000 apparently. Yeah. And you know, I've been told we could bring down governments and places all over the world. Well, if they're built on this, dadgummit, we ought to bring them down, because they are, to me, they're doing business with the devil, and I'm sure Mr. Epstein's dealing with him right now.
So one of the big questions is, how much does Ghislaine Maxwell know? Constitutional law professor Alan Dershowitz believes that she holds the keys to the kingdom. Listen to what he said.
She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information.
Do you share the same opinion as the professor, that she knows where all of the bodies are buried?
Alan is correct. And I would warn people too, they'll tell people, say, well, she'll get up there and lie. If there's a paper trail, if there's any of those files show that she lies and she perjured herself, she'll go back to prison under her original sentence. So I think she's compelled to tell the truth in this. And Professor Dershowitz is correct, I believe. She does hold all the keys to the kingdom on this issue.
Right. On that particular point, you have a point of disagreement with the Speaker of the House, who thinks that she would not be truthful. Listen to what Speaker Johnson said.
Could she be counted on to tell the truth? Is she a credible witness? I mean, this is a person who's been sentenced to many, many years in prison for terrible, unspeakable conspiratorial acts and acts against innocent young people. I mean, can we trust what she's going to say? Even if she raises her hand and says that she'll testify under oath, is that something that can be trusted? You know, that's a reasonable question. Is that credible evidence? I don't know, but we'll have to see.
But you disagree. You believe that she would be compelled to tell the truth.
Unless she wants to go back to prison. I mean, the Speaker is a constitutional attorney. I'm not. I passed a lot of laws, and a lot of times I'll have to get the attorneys to tell me what they said. So he understands the law a lot better than I do, but I think she'll be compelled to tell the truth. And I think she knows that there's enough of a paper trail. But yeah, there's always the chance that she'll lie, because she is a dirtbag. She procured these kids for Epstein, obviously, and in some strange way she loved him. And so I just don't see, I said, let's get her in there. Let's let the legal experts do it. I've talked to many legal experts. I've been talking to my friend Greg Isaacs here in town, criminal defense attorney, of questions that should be asked. And, you know, and I'd hope I can get that opportunity to be there.
Yeah. Another point of interest for you, who knew what when with Joe Biden and his fitness for office. Ron Klain is currently giving a deposition before committee staffers. Unlike Andy Tomasini, Anthony Brunel, and Dr. Kevin O'Connor, he did not take the fifth. We spoke with Ro Khanna and Congressman Andy Biggs after the first session, just before the lunch break. Here's what they said about his testimony.
I found Mr. Klain to be very credible. He answered every single question. He was fully cooperative. There are times where he was asked about personal conversations he had with the president, and he was forthcoming, even if he could have said it was a private matter.
Carefully. It's going, he's saying the things that I kind of expected him to say, which is reflective of the book, the Whipple book, and some of the articles written about that. But he's been answering the questions, I think, forthrightly and in the way he sees the world.
Not there for the deposition today, but you've been talking with your colleagues on the committee. What have you been hearing?
I think that it's disclosing what's going on and just the track they took to get things done. You know, of course, the auto pen is what everybody's looking at. But I think the interesting thing to note is with this, if you've ever talked to prosecutors, especially the mob or other groups like that, they find somebody who will talk. This guy's an honorable man, and he sees the writing on the wall. And these other people are trying to avoid probably a prison sentence, and they're being ill-advised, I would say. And he's been advised correctly. And I suspect once the mortar starts falling off the brick wall, a few more of these are going to come forward because they're going to say, man, I'm going to be implicated in this thing, and they're going to have to start talking. But I find it to be very credible. And, you know, and the thing is, too, the national media chastised people like me. I was banned from stations because I said things that he was inept and mentally unstable to be the commander in chief. And that was years ago. And now all of a sudden it's just commonplace. So I think that can't be said enough.
All right. Well, we'll see what some of your colleagues might have to say about Klain's testimony when they come out of it. They're in the afternoon session now. We'll see what the future holds. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. All right, Sandra.
All right, John.
Brett Baer joins us now. Brett, your thought about where this investigation's going and what new have you learned?
Listen, Brian, I think that the documents show a pattern, and we haven't really seen the end of it. I think the president said there's hundreds more, maybe 1,000. And you heard that from Tulsi Gabbard as well. I think that what becomes painting the picture, and we had a suspicion that, you know, they were really trying hard to tag Russia to the Trump administration, to the president-elect. I mean, remember the coverage back then of, you know, he was a Russian asset, essentially. And nothing that we've seen backs up any of those early conclusions. And then, you know, yesterday we went back and I played the 2018 interview with Jim Comey. I kind of grilled him on specifics of the investigation, and the disparity between the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the Trump Russia investigation is really stark. And I think people have to look back at the prism of that time to get a context of what this all starts to look like.
Yeah, and part of the reason is, look, so people to know, the dossier that was looked as pure fiction was also used by John Brennan to build a case and to get FISA warrants to pursue different surrogates representing Trump, not major players outside you know, you had Carter Page and you had George Papadopoulos. But when asked about the origins of the dossier, which is so controversial, it was amazing how ambivalent he was. Cut 9.
When the Steele dossier comes out sometime early July, when did you personally learn about the memos in the dossier?
Sometime in the fall. I don't remember exactly when.
So who told you about them?
I don't remember. Someone on my senior staff.
Do you remember how they were described?
I remember they briefed me about it, explained that it came from a reliable source, former Allied intelligence officer.
When did you learn that the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign had funded Christopher Steele's work?
Yeah, I still don't know that for a fact.
What do you mean?
I've only seen it in the media. I never knew exactly which Democrats had funded. I knew it was funded first by Republicans, opposed to Donald.
That's not true.
I'm sorry?
That's not true. That the dossier that Christopher Steele worked on was funded by Republicans?
My understanding was his work started funded by Oppo Research, funded by Republicans.
So Free Beacon and said that they had Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS on a kind of a retainer, but they did not fund the Christopher Steele memo or the dossier. That was initiated by Democrats.
Okay, my understanding was the activity was begun that Steele was hired to look into, was first funded by Republicans, then picked up, the important thing was picked up by Democrats opposed to Donald Trump.
Did you tell President Obama that the dossier was who it was funded by?
No, not to my recollection.
Did you want to know who it was funded by?
I wanted to know what I knew, which is that it was funded by people politically opposed to Donald Trump.
So you still to this day don't know that it was funded by the DNC or
I've read that in the media, but I don't know for a fact and didn't know while I was at the FBI.
I mean, you're the FBI director. You don't want to know the origins of intelligence about the future and current president of the United States? Even FBI could see you were totally in disbelief.
That you're briefing on, that you are talking to National Intelligence Director, the CIA Director. That is a big part of the FISA application, to spy on Carter Page. I mean, listen, you have to have a whiteboard to remember all the specifics of this thing. We are so inundated in it that I remembered, I knew kind of every piece of it, definitely back then. I still have it in my mind. But you have to remember how all of this is interconnected. And here's an FBI director saying, I didn't know who funded it. I still don't know the Democrats officially funded it. I read it in the media.
Yeah, I mean, and I just don't believe that for a second. But that whole feeling of who are you, that arrogant way, which what kind of question is that? But I'll answer it for you people. If it could sell a few books or help you tell your story, which was the story, and it's basically John Brennan, James Comey, President Obama, Susan Rice together have what they are claiming was legitimate questions about how Donald Trump was elected. And looking back at this paperwork, they don't have legitimate questions. They know how he was elected. The Russians didn't affect it, but they went out of their way to make it seem like that. And when they got Robert Mueller to be special prosecutor, they must have been high-fiving wherever they were located, maybe in the Barack Obama's mansion.
Yeah, because Mueller was starting to be off his game, and then the testimony of Mueller, really, he was off his game, and you realized how there wasn't any there. You know, it just was not there. And now I think, you know, they classified a lot of documents. So thinking that nobody was going to get to them. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is getting to them and declassifying them. And listen, it's a story. Is it the biggest story? I don't know. Maybe, because maybe it goes to even more documents that point directly to it. But it's clearly a big story, and it's kind of surprising that it doesn't get covered on substance in other places.
But it's like it was never covered. It wasn't covered. It was only covered that on the collusion element of it, but not after the Robert Mueller found out there was no collusion element of it. People just got their trophies, their awards for covering a story that wasn't true. And then they just went back to not being curious about it when it turned out not to be true.
It's really amazing. If you think back at that time, you know, how many TV shows on other networks are tick, tick, tick. Here comes the thing that's coming the next day, breaking, you know, Washington Post, New York Times. And it was every day. It was like another drip, drip, drip from the intelligence community. And now, you know, there's no interest, and it's really unbelievable.
So what's happening again, though, we're watching in real time. The Epstein becomes an investigation that almost every other channel and every Democrat wants to cover. They have had no interest on it for 10 years, almost none, except, you know, with Bill Gates, when Bob Gates, Bill Gates, his name came up, when Prince Andrew's name came up, when Bill Clinton's picture popped up. Then people were curious about Epstein. Did he kill himself? But now that they feel as though there's links to Trump, this is what Democrats want to focus on. And now you have Republicans in the House saying, okay, we do want all this information and we do want an investigation. And it turns out in the Wall Street Journal today, Pam Bondi came out and told Trump in May that his name popped up in the Epstein files. She said it was coming multiple times, but she did also say it doesn't involve wrongdoing. Your name's there, which shouldn't surprise Trump because he knew him and he came to his wedding.
Yeah, our David Spunt confirmed that as well, that briefing had happened, that she had said just because your name's in here doesn't mean it's anything bad. She said that, it could be, it's not, we don't see it at this point. And so David Spunt had that as well yesterday. I think, listen, in the big context, we don't know what's in these documents and these files, all of them. And is there a push to get them all out? Yes. Do people believe, considering how the Russia hoax, as it's called by the Trump administration, was handled back in the day, do people really believe if there was super bad material that involved Donald Trump that it wouldn't have managed to leak from the intelligence community during the Biden years? I mean, I'm not sure I can get there.
I can't get there either. And I would say these are my two analogies. And I would not be surprised if this turned up on Special Report tonight, maybe in your monologue. And no one, I'm not going to say anything, but there was a lot. And if it happens, it happens. I'm used to it. But there's a lot of people who said Bill Cosby was a national treasure and was the best comedian maybe ever. And there's tons of pictures with Bill Cosby. Well, it turns out there was another life. There's a lot of people when I was out in California that just, O.J. Simpson was a top broadcaster, was a top athlete, was a movie star for a while. Everybody was hanging out with him. Al Michaels was his best friend. And so was Bob Costas, was tight. And then he ends up being a double murderer. So obviously, I don't blame these people for hanging out with him when their character turns out to be different. 15 years before Epstein hung himself, Trump said, I'm done with this guy. He's a creep.
Him out of the club in, I think, 2004. Listen, I think that transparency is the greatest thing. I'm all for, lighting up the dark places, and we may get to a point where that's exactly what happens. But this whole thing about every little nuance is another breaking story does feel like a pattern, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, Brett, last night's interview with the NVIDIA CEO, the founder, his story is unbelievable. But I just thought it was interesting, his point to President Trump to allow him to sell the best chips in the world to China, or the second best. H20 is the second best, H100 is the best. And he said, look, if we base, and tell me if I'm wrong here, if we don't sell them to them, they're going to find a way to make their own. And then they're going to be totally on their own. At least we would be leading the field and be in control of the currency for this new technology. And Trump bought into it, right?
He did. And, he was convinced that these are very complex to make. NVIDIA has, this process, and the really high stuff, the cutting edge stuff, is not the stuff that would be going to China. It would be the lower iteration. That said, I asked Jensen Huang, who's to say that in 3 months your chip becomes a China chip? And he said, we have to engage. America has to be leading, and we'll control the innovation side, which I think is a message that they've got, safeguards, and that the best stuff will be in the U.S.
We got a raging stock market. We got another trade deal, and I think the EU seems to be ready to launch. And the president's got the big, beautiful bill, now a law that he feels as though the more people know it, the better it's going to be. You got the attack on our successful attack on Iran's nuclear program. How frustrated do your sources say the president is that people aren't focusing on that and are focusing on the Epstein scandal?
Yeah, he's a little PO'd, I think, from people who are in the circle. But he understands it's part of the game. That said, he looks at the chessboard and sees a lot of great moves for the U.S. And to your point, markets the fact that money is coming in from all over the world, not just the tariff money, but investment and opening markets other places. The Japan deal, I know, very proud of, and I think there's going to be an EU deal very soon. They're on the cusp of it. You got the possibility of real skyrocketing growth, and it's a lot of people are looking at on the market side in pretty bullish terms.
Right, and by the way, the latest on Hamas and the hostage release. It looks like Hamas is not quite there yet, and they disbanded talks. Everyone back to their respective corners with Hamas. We thought we might have a hostage deal coming down, but it looks like it's going to be delayed. But it's the talks are not dead. We'll see what happens over there.
I just did taping with some of the families of hostages still alive, and also one that has been released, talking about what it's like on the inside. We're going to air that next week, but I talked to them for a long, long time, and the grief of waiting is overwhelming.
Absolutely, Brett. Big interviews. I just want you, the foreign minister of Iran,
I think it's terrible. Where are they? Where did you see them? Right outside on Pennsylvania Avenue. Near the Treasury. Right across the street from Have you heard about Todd Blanch's interview with Elaine Maxwell? Are you still disappointed in President Biden? Well, I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to say is that Todd is a great attorney, but you ought to be speaking about Larry Summers. You ought to be speaking about some of his friends that are hedge fund guys. They're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island. Do you maintain you did not write a letter for Jeffrey Epstein's birthday? I don't even know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot. All you have to do is take a look at the dossier, the fake dossier. Everything's fake with that administration. Everything's fake with the Democrats. Take a look at what they just found about the dossier. Everything is fake. They're a bunch of sick people. Where did you see the people laying outside? Exactly. Right across the street from Lafayette Park, sir, towards 15. We'll take care of it.
Are you hoping to meet with President Trump for bringing hostages home? What are the alternative methods to bring hostages home?
Well, we got a lot of them out, and it's I've always said those last 10 or 20 are going to be the toughest, because Hamas knows what happens when they don't have any bargaining chips. And they really broke a deal. They broke a deal, and you're going to have to do what you have to do right now. It's a terrible thing. And I always knew that. I said, when you get down to the last one, they're not going to be able to make a deal.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out, sir?
Why has the dollar fallen so much, and are you concerned about that? Well, I'm a person that likes a strong dollar, but a weak dollar makes you a hell of a lot more money. Hate to tell you, I don't know if you study it, but I study it. And if you look at the yen,
I went to Japan and worked, so I know this.
You understand?
Absolutely.
Oh, you did go to Japan?
I went to work. Yes,
well, that means you're a smarter guy than I even thought, and I know you're smart. So when we have a strong dollar, one thing happens. It sounds good. But you don't do any tourism. You can't sell tractors. You can't sell trucks. You can't sell anything. It is good for inflation. That's about it. And we have no inflation. We've wiped out inflation. But it's an interesting question. So I will never say I like a low currency, but you remember the battles I had with the yuan, with China and with Japan, Japan being the yen. They always wanted a weak currency. They're trying to get a weak currency now. Now, it doesn't sound good, but you make a hell of a lot more money with a weaker dollar, not a weak dollar, but a weaker dollar than you do with a strong dollar. And the first people that are going to notice it are the manufacturers of trucks and various other things. Like, look at Caterpillar, how well they're doing now. When you have a strong dollar, you can't sell anything. It's only good for inflation, and it's good psychologically. It makes you feel good. But with that being said, I love strong dollars, but you make your money with a currency. And I had so many different fights with President Xi, between Japan and China. All they want to do is have a weak currency. They're always fighting for a weak currency. And that's how they really dominated over the years. So when I see it down there, I don't lose sleep over it, let's put it that way. In fact, sometimes I go to sleep very happy. You understand. Do you agree with me?
I agree with a lot of what you said, Mr. President. Do you think it makes any easier to impose your tariff with that lower dollar? Because
I think it makes it easier even for tariffs, yeah. And it makes the tariffs worth much more. And it's easier to pay off debt. And it's easier to get a low interest rate. There are a lot of good things. It's hard to explain to people. The headline, Trump wants a weak dollar. It's not a weak dollar. You take a look at the history of China over the last 20 years. All they do is fight for a weak currency. Look at Japan when they were really doing well. They had a very weak currency. So to me, I just say, thank you very much. It is what it is.
What's your comment on Epstein? Have you given up on a Gaza ceasefire?
Well, the Gaza situation, and I said this was going to happen when you get down to your last 10 or 20. We got a lot of hostages out. We took them out in numbers that nobody believed, a lot of them. And I said, when you get down to 10 or 20, I don't think Hamas is going to make a deal because that means they have no protection. And basically, that's what happened. Hamas didn't want to make a deal. I think what's going to happen is they're going to be hunted down.
Secondary sanctions sooner on Russia. Are you closer today to secondary sanctions?
We're looking at that whole situation. It could be that we'll have to put secondary sanctions on them.
Sooner than 50 days?
Maybe, yeah.
Do you think it's counterproductive?
Who are you with? Who are you with?
Scripps News.
Oh, good.
Counterproductive to France, for France to say that they would recognize the Palestinian state. Macron said that yesterday.
Look, he's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news: what he says doesn't matter. It's not going to change it. Well, he made a statement, France, Macron. His statement doesn't carry any weight. He's a very good guy. I like him, but that statement doesn't carry weight.
How important is the trade deal with the EU?
I would say that we have a 50-50 chance, maybe less than that, but a 50-50 chance of making a deal with the EU. And it'll be a deal where they have to buy down their tariffs, because they're right now at 30%. And they'll have to buy them down, maybe, or they could leave them the way they are. But they want to make a deal very badly. I would have said we have a 25% chance with Japan. And they kept coming back, and we made a deal. And the deal is, don't forget, Japan's putting up $550 billion. It's a lot of money. And also paying tariffs. The biggest part of the Japan deal, and maybe we get this with EU, maybe we don't, is that we have the right to go in and trade. We have the right. They've totally opened Japan just to the U.S. That's, to me, the biggest part of the deal.
What level tariff nuclear disarmament? You said repeatedly you would like to see further nuclear arms reductions between the United States and Russia.
To see that.
But the New START treaty is expiring in about 6 months, and it cannot be legally extended.
That's a problem. That's a problem for the world.
A new one.
It's a problem for the world. You know, we have restrictions, and they have restrictions, as you know, on nuclear. That's not an agreement you want expiring. We're starting to work on that, but that is a big problem for the world. When you take off nuclear restrictions, that's a big problem.
What level tariff?
I think that Jerome Powell, I think we had a very good meeting. Forgetting about the building, that's out of control and all that. But I think we had a very good meeting on interest rates. And he said to me, now I don't know if he's going to say this on Thursday or whenever he speaks, but he said to me very strongly, the country is doing well. He said, congratulations, the country is doing really well. And I got that to mean that I think he's going to start recommending lower rates.
because of that
How do
conversation?
you think that the Supreme
The
Court,
country really is doing well.
Mr. President, how do you think that
Record business.
Did you speak to
President,
Netanyahu?
Thank you, Mr. President. How do you think that the Supreme Court's ruling that benefited you on presidential immunity would apply to former President Barack Obama and what you're accusing him of doing?
It probably helps him a lot. Probably helps him a lot, the immunity ruling. But it doesn't help the people around him at all. But it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts, there's no question about it. But he has immunity, and it probably helps him a lot. He owes me big. Obama owes me big.
What are the details in the UK trade agreement you're hoping to fine tune with the Prime Minister?
This week we want to talk about certain aspects which is going to be good for both countries. More fine tuning, and also we're going to do a little celebrating together because, we got along very well. UK's been trying to make a deal with us for like 12 years and haven't been able to do it. We got it done. He's doing a very good job, good prime minister, good guy. We really get along very well. So we're going to meet at Turnberry and we're going to meet at Aberdeen. So two beautiful places.
Is there wiggle room in steel and aluminum if they were to budge on digital services tax?
Say it.
Is there any wiggle room on steel and aluminum in exchange for any budge on digital services tax?
Not a lot, because if I do it for one, I have to do it for all. So on that, steel and aluminum, not a lot.
President, have you speak to Netanyahu about aid drops?
Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. President, did you speak to Netanyahu about allowing aid drops in Gaza from Arab countries?
Yeah, I speak to him, but I can't tell you what I spoke to him about. But it was sort of disappointing, although I told you. I told you, when you get down to those last 20 hostages, you get down to that last 10 or 20, it's going to be very hard for Hamas to make a deal because they lose their shield, they lose their cover. We got a lot of them out, a lot of them. We took a lot of bodies out, too. So many of the parents said, please get my son's body back. And we're able to do that. We got a lot of people out, live and people that are not alive. But it was very important to the parents to get their son back, even though they knew their son was dead.
Are you going to be able to get the Open Championship back to Turnberry?
I think they will do that, yeah. They want Turnberry is rated the #1 course in the world. I think they'll do that, yeah.
And are you going to talk to anybody?
No, I'm not going to. It's not about that. I'm going to see it for the first time in years. You were there the last time we went. That's pretty good, right? No, it's the best resort in the world, I think, at Turnberry, and it's one of the greatest courses in the world. We're going to see it. We're going to have, I believe, dinner at Turnberry with the Prime Minister. Then we're going to go to the oil capital of Europe, which is Aberdeen, and we're going to have lunches there. We're going to have a good time. I think the Prime Minister and I get along very well.
And you're going to see the Scottish leader, too, right?
I am.
What's that about?
Well, we have a lot of things in Scotland. I have a lot of love. My brother was born in Scotland, and he's a good man. The Scottish leader's a good man, so I look forward to meeting him. That's all set up, right?
Paris Day is exactly 1 week from today, August the 1st. What do you expect between now and next Friday as it relates to your deadline?
When you say tariff, not Paris.
Paris.
I think you said. I think you said Paris Day.
No, Paris Day.
Well, most of the deals are finished right now. They're finished because we're just going to charge a certain tariff. A lower tariff that I could get. I don't want to hurt countries. But we're going to send a letter out sometime during the week. And it's basically going to say you're going to pay 10%, you're going to pay 15%, you're going to pay maybe less. I don't know. But Australia was great. They opened up beef yesterday for the first time ever. And they did it. We didn't know about it. We asked them to do it, and all of a sudden we got a word that they wanted. So obviously they're looking to do something. But Australia. So August 1st is going to come, and we will have most of our deals finished, if not all. We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs. Not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China, but we haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it.
When you send out those letters, Mr. President, when you send out those letters, you believe that will bring some certainty to the financial markets because then they will know.
No, when those letters go out, there's a page and a half. That means they have a deal. It's done. They pay that tariff, and that is a contract essentially. And they can come into the country. They're going to pay a tariff. I'm going to keep it minimal. I'm going to keep it. I'm not looking to hurt countries. I could do that too, but I'm not looking to do that. But when that letter goes out, that's a deal. And we'll be sending maybe close to 200 of those letters out. Don't forget, we have a lot of countries. So we're going to be sending out almost 200 of those letters. But once those letters go out, we have a deal. Now, we sent one to Japan, we sent one to EU, and they came back and negotiated a deal. I think EU has got a pretty good chance of making a deal.
With all of that revenue coming in, Mr. President,
a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Our country was a dead country. It was a dead country 1 year ago. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And don't you feel it?
Mr. President, with all of that revenue coming in tens and tens of billions of dollars, do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice. Being blocked by a lot of people. People don't know this, and we didn't certainly get any acknowledgement or thank you, but we contributed $60 million to food and supplies and everything else. We hope the money gets there because, that money gets taken, the food gets taken. We're going to do more, but we gave a lot of money. We gave a majority of the money, and the sad part is that no other country other than us gives anything.
Have you spoken to Michael Walkley about running for that North Carolina?
I have, yeah.
And will he run, do you think?
I think he will.
So teacher shortages, so what can be done to get...
Are you from North Carolina?
My father lives there.
He'll be a good candidate.
So what can be done to bring more teachers, more educators into the classroom to alleviate the teacher shortage across the country?
We're doing that, and we're doing it strongly. What we're doing is moving education back to the states. The states will run education. When they do it, you're going to have the best education in the world. We'll have 35 or 40 states where it will be as good as Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the top 5 or 6 countries.
How do you attract the top talent, the top teachers to get into the classroom?
We're going to get them. We already have them. When we go back to the states with education, you're going to see a big difference.
Mr. President, just what we consider Maxwell, is that on the table?
Interview going on. Todd Blanch is a great gentleman. He's a great man. He's a great lawyer. He's got a great heart. But he's over there now. I don't know exactly what's happening, but I certainly can't talk about pardons.
Can you trust what she's telling him? She's a convicted trafficker who's eager to get out of prison.
Well, he's a professional lawyer. I think he's been through things like this before. But you should focus on Clinton. You should focus on the president of Harvard. The former president of Harvard. You should focus on some of the hedge fund guys. I'll give you a list. These guys lived with Jeffrey Epstein. I sure as hell didn't. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, should that be part of the way?
In New York, NBC's national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter and MSNBC legal analyst, former Assistant Manhattan District Attorney Catherine Christian. Monica, as we continue to monitor the president's remarks, what else are we hearing from him and what's expected on day 2 of Maxwell's questioning?
Well, that's exactly the question that I posed to the president a couple of minutes ago, Anna, because that is the main issue here that we still don't have a complete understanding into, which is what is the goal of these meetings. The president praised Todd Blanch, saying that he is an excellent attorney. Of course, this is somebody who has represented him as a criminal defense attorney in several cases and knows the president pretty well. So he kept the focus on that. But what I also thought was really notable is that we tried to ask him his thoughts about whether he's considering clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell. And he said that he didn't want to engage on that really notable line of questioning. Here's a little bit more of what he told reporters on the South Lawn.
Well, I don't know about the meeting. I know it's taking place, and he's a fantastic man. He's a great attorney, and people should really focus on how well the country's doing.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Interesting there that the president said he's allowed to do it, but that he hasn't thought about it. When another journalist asked him the same question, he said, look, this is an ongoing investigation, so I don't want to talk about that. But of course, now that that is out there, these are discussions that could be taking place in the White House and with the Department of Justice about these next steps, because that is the other issue here, Anna, about the idea that the White House didn't want to be talking about this anymore, but with high profile meetings like the one that's continuing today, and the president just last night urging and saying that he wants to see some grand jury testimony continue to be released, some transcripts potentially, which so far the courts have said would be really difficult, but that's something he's still calling for. So there are some next steps that are still open here, even though the president in his own answers to us just now said he would rather be talking about other things. He'd be rather talking about the U.S. economy. And he did talk a little bit about his meeting yesterday with the Fed chair and tried to pivot to some of these trade deals he's hoping to get across the finish line in the next couple of days. But he took a ton of questions, and many of them were, of course, still focused on this issue plaguing the White House.
And we will be talking about the economy and his meeting there at the Fed later this hour. But coming back to Epstein and this interview with Maxwell happening, day 2 of interviews. Tom, we've discussed how just unusual it is for a deputy attorney general to be involved in an interview like this. You add in that, Trump has a personal connection to Maxwell. You have Blanch's friendship with Maxwell's attorney. You have Blanch previously representing Donald Trump in a personal capacity. It's easy to see how all the goals here could get muddled. Is Blanch fact-fighting or negotiating here? And do we know, is it on behalf of Donald Trump or on behalf of the DOJ?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking all the right questions. So let's just encompass everything Monica said about this. I was trying to think about it last night. What is the goal here? What is the mission? So just to underscore the unusualness of this, a deputy attorney general might, in the highest of profile cases, get a phone call, maybe get a quick little email updating him or her on the specific nature of a case or an ongoing investigation, only in the most high profile cases. The idea that a deputy attorney general would become personally involved in the case at some point and spend a lot of time on it, or would actually conduct an interview, is just not something I've ever seen in my career. So that is unusual. Looking at this, the Department of Justice just a couple of weeks ago told us in a memo there's no Epstein client list, that there was no blackmail effort. He wasn't recording anybody in exchange for or tied with his criminal conduct. And the third thing is that there were no other uncharged third parties that they could potentially go after. So effectively closing this investigation. Now we're going out and interviewing somebody who's at the very center of the conspiracy, convicted, that you're talking about. So I really don't understand what the goal here is. I don't know. And we're trying to figure out, myself and my colleague Mike Cosner, trying to figure out whether or not there are any agents in the room. Is it just Todd Blanch in the room? So is he the only witness? So if he's the only witness, that creates problems legally. What is actually going on here? We hear from Maxwell's attorney yesterday that she didn't need to invoke any privilege. So I'm trying to think about all the things that Ghislaine Maxwell knows, the things I know that she knows. We have so much information about Ghislaine Maxwell. This is a very unusual case. We have had so many civil depositions with her, so many civil filings, so much of this so-called Epstein files is public. It's sitting on my computer, reporters' computers around the country. We've used it to report on this case for almost a decade. So what could you be asking her where she's not considering invoking a privilege that's coming close to criminal conduct? Again, it goes back to what is ultimately the goal here. Now, people are asking, could she get out of prison early? there is a motion. I think maybe on this show yesterday I mentioned it was a 5K motion. I was actually incorrect in that. It's a Rule 35 that occurs because it would have been a year after she was sentenced. But there's some very specific criteria in that. So you can't come back to the Justice Department later and say, oh, I happen to remember this thing and you should really talk to me because I don't like being in jail anymore and I want to get out. It has to be information that comes after 1 year after sentencing that you learned that could potentially be helpful.
New information, truly.
Truly new information. She'd been sitting in prison. I mean, what type of investigative activities has she been conducting? And so it does raise some questions here.
So many questions. Catherine, coming back to one thing that Tom mentioned, and that is, Todd Blanch interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell. If there aren't other people that are part of this interview, does he now become some kind of witness if there are new investigative leads that come from these interviews? What are the implications? And does this whole interview with Maxwell at this point make sense?
Well, that would be professional incompetence. No prosecutor should ever interview a defendant or a witness alone. You have agents with you. You have your paralegal with you. You have witnesses. So I would be shocked if Todd Blanch is interviewing her alone. I mean, obviously her attorney is there. So that would just be incompetence. And to follow up on what Tom said, Maxwell is not an Epstein victim or an Epstein client. She was his partner. So if this is a real interview and not a
jury convicted her on that
20-year sentence. If this is a real interview and not a performative one, there probably were uncharged people, but the reason why they went uncharged is because there was no proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I would ask about those people and see what she knows about them. I would obviously confer, though I think Trump fired the prosecutors who handled the Epstein case. I would ask about that. And even if she gave information about that, because she is a liar, and that's what they said at sentencing, the prosecutor, I would have to corroborate every word that came out of her mouth. So that's the problem with this interview. What is the point other than performative?
Guys, last night, Maria Farmer, one of the first accusers of Maxwell and Epstein, spoke here with MSNBC, and her lawyer said, despite all of this new activity in the Justice Department, the DOJ still hasn't contacted them. Watch.
The FBI and DOJ memorandum that says we will not release any files. There's nothing to see here. We're not going to charge anyone. This is over. And they made this conclusion, reached this conclusion without even talking to a single victim.
One of the steps they're supposed to take is reach out as a part of the victim notices process. Have they done that at all? Have you heard from them, Jennifer?
Not a peep, nothing.
Tom, this is now what we're hearing from another lawyer and an accuser involved in this Epstein case and the investigation. Is it typical for victims to be brought into it along the way in terms of investigative steps and key parts of, whether you're closing a case or interviewing a convicted person who's implicated in these same crimes?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, that's why we've been pounding the table on this reporting on this network and on all of our networks here for the last couple of weeks. If you're going to conduct a thorough review, at some point you might want to pick up the phone and talk to the people that were in the room that were the victims of crime. This is the Department of Justice. The idea of prosecuting individuals is so that there is justice for the victims. The justice is served in the interest of the United States. Is that happening here? Let's remember how this whole case really kind of came to be once the non-prosecution agreement was signed. The victims were furious that they were not notified that Jeffrey Epstein got a non-prosecution agreement from then United States Attorney Alex Acosta. The FBI wanted to arrest Epstein well before this, within a year of getting the case from the Palm Beach Police Department, which wanted to arrest Jeffrey Epstein at that moment. So there was no doubt that the people who were investigating this case wanted to make an arrest. They get this non-prosecution agreement. The victims are furious. That's how we've gotten so many of the files that we've gotten already in this case. And now you're saying that you're conducting a complete review, that you've found no information that could even predicate opening an investigation. So you don't even have, they're saying, any information that could even allow them to open a case against a third party. And you've still not talked to the victims, but you're talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, who's convicted of trafficking them.
Well, in fact, one attorney for some survivors has now sent a letter to Todd Blanch, to congressional leaders saying, I am here, and my team is here for you. We can assist in your preparation for these interviews with Maxwell, given our intimate knowledge of the case and the alleged crimes here. So is it surprising to you, Catherine, that they haven't reached out to the victims, not even their attorneys in this process?
Surprising and shocking if it's a real reinvestigation or real interview. In addition to looking at the file of her trial, you're going to speak to the victims, the people who she abused, along with Mr. Epstein, and get some information and ask her about it if it's a real interview, and give them a heads up. They shouldn't have to read or on the news or hear in the news that they're seeking to.
Birthday letters to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday is in the possession of the Epstein estate in Florida. Other news organizations have credited our reporting and been following up on it and adding significantly to that reporting tonight. The latest reporting is from the New York Times, and it includes the image of the first page of the birthday book. It is a handwritten letter from Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator in sex trafficking, Ghislaine Maxwell, who assembled the book with the help of many of Jeffrey Epstein's rape victims who Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell raped when they were in middle school and high school. We learned last night on this program from the lawyer representing those victims that they were told by Ghislaine Maxwell to help her actually assemble the birthday book. And here is Ghislaine Maxwell's birthday note. The very first page of the birthday book was the birthday note from Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein. Here it is. It says, Jeffrey, the idea behind this book was simply to gather stories and old photographs to jog your memory about places and people and different events. Some of the letters will definitely achieve their intended goal. Some, well, you will have to read them to see for yourself. I know you will enjoy looking through the book, and I hope you will derive as much pleasure looking through it as I did putting it together for you. Happy, happy birthday, love, Ghislaine. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are reporting tonight that Donald Trump's name appears on the list of contributors to the birthday book. The Journal reports that contributors to the birthday book, quote, were grouped under categories such as science, Brooklyn, and family. The Journal says that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were listed on the Friends group, which also included Jeffrey Epstein's criminal defense lawyer, Alan Dershowitz. The New York Times is also reporting tonight on another handwritten note to Jeffrey Epstein by Donald Trump. It says, to Jeff, you are the greatest, reads an inscription in a copy of Mr. Trump's book, Trump, The Art of the Comeback, that belonged to Mr. Epstein. And there it is. You see it signed Donald. It's dated October 1997, the month the book came out. That signature that you just saw will no doubt be compared by handwriting experts to the Donald signature, that one-word signature that reportedly appears in the description of the letter bearing Donald Trump's name in the Epstein birthday book, as was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Unlike the Wall Street Journal's report on the Trump letter, the Bill Clinton letter contains no sexual innuendo. The Journal describes the Clinton page this way: a single paragraph in Clinton's distinctive scrawl saying, "It's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long across all the years of learning and knowing, adventures and illegible word, and also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference, and the solace of friends." Bland stuff, nothing sexually suggestive in the Clinton birthday message to Jeffrey Epstein, something that could have been written by Clinton staff or Bill Clinton himself. The Wall Street Journal reports a spokesman for Clinton declined to comment on the birthday message, which was reviewed by the Journal. He referred to the journal to a previous statement that the former president had cut off ties more than a decade before Epstein was arrested in 2019 and didn't know about Epstein's alleged crimes. That is Bill Clinton essentially validating the reporting that is his letter. Bill Clinton is not threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal about the birthday book. He's not saying that's not my letter. Alan Dershowitz is not threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal about their reporting on the birthday book, which includes a letter from Alan Dershowitz to the child rapist who Alan Dershowitz defended in the first criminal cases against Jeffrey Epstein. The Journal reports the letter from Dershowitz, who represented Epstein in the first criminal case in the 2000s, included a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair magazine cover with mock headlines. It's been a long time, and I don't recall the content of what I may have written Dershowitz said. So that's Alan Dershowitz confirming tonight that he contributed to the birthday book. Alan Dershowitz confirming the existence of the birthday book. Of all the people mentioned in the Wall Street Journal reporting who contributed to the birthday book, including fashion designer Vera Wang, none of them claim that they did not contribute to the birthday book. Donald Trump is the only one making that claim, and it's not working. Tonight, the Wall Street Journal is reporting this. The letter bearing Trump's signature, which had the outline of a naked woman, was one of the more memorable pages, according to the people involved in putting the album together. Last night on this program, Bradley Edwards told us who helped Ghislaine Maxwell put that book together. You said that some of your clients have specific knowledge of that birthday book.
Sure. Yes, more than one, multiple of them.
And what is that knowledge? They saw it, or they were around him when he was 50 years old? Were they present at his birthday, his 50th birthday?
I don't know the answer to that last question. I do know that they were involved in the assembly of the book, several of them. They were told by Ghislaine to assist in putting the book together. Others have seen the book post birthday and after it was assembled.
Some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims were actually used by Ghislaine Maxwell to assemble that birthday book, to actually put those letters together in that book.
Yeah, well, you have to remember that Jeffrey Epstein was abusing and exploiting young women and children every day of his life. So anybody that's around for any major event, such as the assembly of his 50th birthday book, they're going to have to be involved in assembling or playing their part, whatever they were directed to do with respect to that book.
Wall Street Journal reported at 7:08 p.m. tonight, Brad Edwards, a lawyer who has represented more than 200 of Epstein's victims, said on MSNBC Wednesday evening that he has multiple clients who remember the birthday book. The existence of the book is an absolute fact. Edwards said several digital copies of the album have been created. Pages have been reviewed by Justice Department officials who investigated Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people familiar with the matter. The album is part of Epstein's estate. Several copies means that the likelihood of the birthday book becoming public is increasing exponentially. MSNBC's legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, a frequent and valuable guest on this program, asked Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer tonight, does Maxwell herself have the book? And Maxwell's lawyer declined to comment. But today, Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer spent most of his day hanging with Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. Todd Blanch's last job before becoming the number 2 at the Justice Department as the Deputy Attorney General was serving as Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer in his the criminal cases that Donald Trump was facing last year. Todd Blanch lost the one case that went to trial, and he still delighted in his failing final argument to the jury, in which he called the prosecution witness, Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former lawyer, the greatest liar of all time. Here is criminal defense lawyer Todd Blanch, after losing that trial last year, talking about that trial with Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer, who Todd Blanch spent the day with today.
Last thing about the closing. So
So you called him the MVP of liars. I love the gloat line, of course.
You loved it because you gave it to me, David. Say it to the world.
So
it was genius. It was genius, David. And I mean, in all seriousness, to you, I know a lot of people that have worked with you. I know a lot of people who know you very well. I now consider you a friend and someone who I know pretty well. You are by far the best out there, and I'll always say yes to this podcast.
Those two friends met today in what is the first time in Justice Department history that a deputy attorney general seized a case away from the prosecutor handling the case after firing that prosecutor last week, Maureen Comey, and then taking it upon himself to go have a meeting with a convicted sex trafficker who was also charged with perjury. There is absolutely no legitimate basis for such a meeting with the deputy attorney general, former criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump, who gave every appearance today of still functioning as, in effect, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. Could Todd Blanch have any other purpose in talking to Ghislaine Maxwell than trying to get her to say something positive about his client, Donald Trump? Todd Blanch tweeted today, I met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I will continue my interview of her tomorrow. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time. Ghislaine Maxwell, as a lawyer, said this after the strangest meeting a criminal defense lawyer has ever had with a deputy attorney general of the United States. Good to see you all.
How's it going?
Great.
Come on over, Leia. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. We had a very productive day today with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanch, and Ghislaine Maxwell. First, we want to thank the Deputy Attorney General for being so professional with all of us and for meeting with us. He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability. And that's all the comment we're going to have today about the meeting.
And so tonight, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who were in middle school and high school when Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell raped them together, have more to fear tonight from Ghislaine Maxwell, thanks to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer offered Ghislaine Maxwell what? Exactly what? To answer his questions today. Ghislaine Maxwell, who never testified in her own defense in her criminal trial, knowing she was facing a possible 20 years in prison, suddenly decided today that she would talk to a criminal prosecutor for the first time in her life. She could have done that when she and Jeffrey Epstein were both charged for those crimes, but she didn't. She fled. She was hiding out in New Hampshire when she was tracked down by federal agents and apprehended. And even though she was facing a federal criminal trial in which she knew there wasn't one word of testimony that she could give to that jury under oath that wouldn't make the case against her even worse. That's what she knew. That's why criminal defendants like Ghislaine Maxwell don't testify. If Ghislaine Maxwell thought for a second that she could have helped herself with the jury, with even one juror, by testifying, she would have testified. But she knew, and her criminal defense attorney knew, that the testimony against Ghislaine Maxwell by her victims, who she personally raped, along with Jeffrey Epstein, she didn't just lure them into being raped by Jeffrey Epstein. She joined Jeffrey Epstein in the room and joined personally in raping those girls. She knew that that testimony against her in court was something she could not possibly overcome. And so she didn't say a word. She decided there's nothing that she could say under oath to counter that testimony. But today, according to her lawyer, she answered every question. She never stopped. She never invoked privilege. What did Todd Blanch offer her to make her suddenly decide she was safe with Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney? Why did Ghislaine Maxwell decide today that she could tell Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney anything? and it couldn't possibly get her in more trouble. Here's what Bradley Edwards, the lawyer for hundreds of Epstein and Maxwell victims, told us last night.
One thing that has really alarmed our clients, particularly today, is the information that now Ghislaine Maxwell is being visited in jail, and that she is somehow being given some credibility and a platform on this particular topic. I think what people are forgetting is that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't only indicted on sex trafficking charges. Ghislaine Maxwell, because of testimony she gave on multiple occasions in the civil cases where we sued her, she provided testimony, and as a consequence of false testimony, she was indicted on 2 perjury counts on this particular topic. So we're going to go and ask somebody to tell the truth who was indicted on perjury charges related to this particular topic. Now, does she have information that could potentially help? Yes. Will she be truthful about it? Who knows? But whoever is going to be the questioner, whoever's going to be the interrogator, must know more than just a rudimentary understanding of the case. You have to have seen her other deposition transcripts to know what she said so that you can keep her in line. You have to know her testimony from her criminal trial to keep her in line, and you have to understand the case. Sending somebody there that knows nothing, she's going to say whatever she wants to say. And what's her incentive? Is her incentive because she's going to get a deal? I have many clients who say, look, President Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell were good friends back then. Is he going to commute her? Is he going to pardon her? And I have said to them, look, I know that you feel like an afterthought right now. I know that you feel like you don't matter. For him to do that would be, he thought about you and he decided you do not matter.
Good friends back then. Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell were good friends. And it looks like Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer are trying to make them good friends once again.
In the meantime, in our continuing coverage of the Epstein saga, the DOJ's #2 official, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch, met today with Ghislaine Maxwell, the imprisoned former girlfriend of financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this meeting took place in Florida. We heard from Blanch on social media saying this: "Today I met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I will continue my interview of her tomorrow. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time." Fox News correspondent Rebecca Castor with more.
At a federal courthouse in Tallahassee, not far from the prison where Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch is hoping she'll shed new light on Jeffrey Epstein's sex crimes.
We had a very productive day today. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability.
But it begs the question, at what price? She's currently appealing her conviction and sentence at the Supreme Court, but the DOJ is not commenting on whether they'll offer her a deal.
The question is, does she have something that would be material for a criminal prosecution, not just embarrassing?
There's a bipartisan push on Capitol Hill to get the DOJ to turn over all of the Epstein files. Democrats don't like the idea of Trump administration prosecutors questioning Maxwell behind closed doors.
Trump is sending his personal lawyer, Todd Blanch, to try and execute a corrupt cover-up, potentially offering leniency to a woman who also abused the victims. Enough. Enough.
The sit-down comes several months after the DOJ told Trump his name appeared in the files and later told the public there was not a client list to release.
I don't think any of that's a surprise that he's mentioned the documents. I mean, of course, it's everybody who's ever met the guy is going to be mentioned.
Lawmakers on the House Oversight Committee also want a meeting with Maxwell. Her attorney says today's discussion will inform how she moves forward with their subpoena. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. Hearing as well from Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, I want to put this post up from David Oscar Marcus saying, looking forward to another productive day tomorrow. Ghislaine honestly answered every question that Todd Blanch asked, and she will continue to do so. We're grateful that the government is trying to uncover the truth. They have never before spoken with her, and we trust the process here. Let's bring into the conversation some more legal analysis with legal expert John Day. He joins me. John, thanks for being with us, and good to see you here. I guess my first question is this. What more can Ghislaine Maxwell offer to the federal government? There was a trial. Wouldn't this have all come out in her very own trial where she was convicted? She's serving a 20-year sentence. What more can she say? Who else is there to implicate?
Right. Well, thanks for having me. And that's been my question. If there's some super card, a killer card that she has to play, why wasn't it played before when there was a trial? The Department of Justice was prosecuting her. If there is information that leads to some type of criminal prosecution, because that's really the only information that would be relevant. I mean, there might be embarrassing information, but why wasn't that card played previously when she was facing, a sentence of 20 years in federal prison? So I think that's the question in my mind and the mind of a lot of people who have been following this. What information is there? We've had Blanch in there for, now it's going to be 2 days asking questions, and they seem to be productive questions and answers coming from Maxwell. But again, if she had all this killer information, why didn't it come out before?
Yeah, I mean, that's my question. I mean, if you're Todd Blanch, John, what's your line of questioning? How do you approach this?
Right. You want to know anything, well, first of all, anything at all relevant that may not have come up before, but also anything that's, you're going to know anything, whether if it's embarrassing, if it's relevant to a criminal prosecution. It's sort of what they call in the prosecution world, queen for a day type deal, where the defendant comes in and gets a deal by speaking to federal prosecutors and FBI agents and so on, giving up everything that he or she knows in exchange for a deal. What we don't know here is there a deal? I mean, is there going to be a commutation? Is there going to be a pardon? Is that even on the table? Have there been discussions about getting all the information out of Maxwell? And what does Maxwell get? Remember, she's looking at a long, long time in prison. She got a 20-year sentence in a federal prison. That's not a country club. And so her lawyers have been structuring this to get the best possible outcome for her. We just don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay, John, that was my next question. I mean, do you worry that Todd Blanch, Pam Bondi, others at the DOJ, are they going to put something, are they going to dangle something in front of Ghislaine Maxwell that's going to be somewhat attractive to her and her case in order to get information? Or is this completely one-sided? I mean, Maxwell, she's serving time. She's doing this voluntarily here. It's not like she had a choice. Are you worried that, to your point, a pardon, a commutation, help with her appeal, is that in the offing here?
What's unusual and unique about this is all these negotiations are being done in public. I mean, we are watching this go down in real time. So if there is a deal, everybody understands that it was done following Todd Blanch's 2 days of questioning of Maxwell in a federal prison. If anything comes out of that, where she gets a benefit, and it's going to be very clear what the track was to get her there. So unlike most discussions like this between prosecutors and defense lawyers and defendants, all the conversations are taking place publicly in real time. And so we're watching it go down. So if there is an outcome that benefits Maxwell, we're going to know how that came about.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, a lot of people who are following this story, John, extremely, extremely closely. And some have even called them conspiracists. We won't call them that because it is right to get answers and demand them here. And one of the key sticking points that people are having a very difficult time to wrap their head around is how can there not be more people in this sordid web? Just Maxwell and Epstein. So a lot of the people who have really staked their entire careers and reputations on getting to the bottom of this, that's the question they're asking. There has to be more people involved in this sex trafficking ring. So far, though, Epstein, Maxwell. Epstein's dead, Maxwell's in prison. Is that a right question? Is that a valid question to ask?
Yeah, it's a valid question. And it's a valid question to ask because remember what's on the other side of this. There are about 1,000 young women, girls who are victims. All right. And remember, you have to remember this. This is the Maxwell Epstein victim list. We've been talking about the client list a lot, but we can't forget that underlying all of this is the fact that there were about 1,000 young girls who were victimized. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the news about what's going on with Epstein and Maxwell and the interviews. But remember at the end of the day that there were these young girls, these women who were victimized. And it's good not to lose sight of that as we're trying to figure out what's going on, what information Maxwell has, what she's going to do with it. Is she going to benefit from it?
So, John, there's kind of a dual track route here going on. Let's go to Capitol Hill as well. Some of these subcommittees in the House, they also want to speak with Maxwell. And I can't think of any time, and this vote was out of committee. They did vote to subpoena Maxwell for maybe a deposition. Has a defendant serving time ever been deposed in front of a Capitol Hill committee here? I mean, what is that going to look like if that happens? Do you think that will happen?
What's that going to look like? Well, think about all these Congress people going home, talking to their constituents, and their constituents. This is something people want to know. What's at the heart of the Epstein situation? Is there a client list? Is there a list of people who are being shielded? Are there people we know about? Are there people we don't know about? So if you're a member of Congress and you're going home and you're getting an earful from people who say, get to the bottom of this, there has to be full disclosure, there has to be transparency. So that's where the pressure is coming from, at least if you're a congressperson going home and realizing that people are following this. People who ordinarily are worrying about, putting food on the table. Sure. This is also something that concerns them.
Yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican Majority Leader in the House, Steve Scalise, they have said they will address whatever outstanding Epstein-related issues are in Congress when they return from recess. They just went on recess yesterday. They won't be back until, I believe, after Labor Day, so we'll just have to wait and see. John Day, good to see you. Thanks so much for your insight. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay, in the meantime here, let's listen. This is very brief as well. These are Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys meeting outside the federal penitentiary where she is serving her time there in Tallahassee, speaking after Maxwell met with Todd Blanch. Let's listen.
Come on over, Leia. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. We had a very productive day today with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanch, and Ghislaine Maxwell. First, we want to thank the Deputy Attorney General for being so professional with all of us and for meeting with us. He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped. She never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability. And that's all the comment we're going to have today about the meeting. We don't want to comment about the substance of the meeting for obvious reasons, and we'll go from there. So thank you all so much.
Will you guys be coming back for a second day?
We're not going to comment on that now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly shift gears right now as we're going to take you out to some comments after an Arizona woman pleaded guilty, was sentenced in a fraud scheme that generated millions of dollars for herself and North Korea. Let's take you out right now to Judge Janine Pirro there. She's making some comments for the Department of Justice. You can see her kind of setting the scene there as the announcement on the sentencing of Christina Chapman case. Let's listen into this.
Except the impact has national security implications. So today, a Christina Chapman of Arizona was sentenced to 102 months of imprisonment for conspiring with North Koreans to infiltrate U.S. companies, including Fortune 500 companies, with the goal of creating revenue to send to North Korea for their munitions development. So North Korea's munition department has trained and deployed more than 3,000 workers in information technology or IT skills so that they can then commit fraud on companies in the United States to generate revenue for the North Korean regime. The crime? North Korea used stolen or fraudulent identities of 68 U.S. individuals to set up fake online personas. And when the North Koreans obtained those identities, they got employment with 309 companies, some of them Fortune 500 companies in this country. Many listed their home addresses where they would receive checks from these companies at Chapman's house, the defendant who was just sentenced to 102 months in prison. Now, the companies would send Chapman a laptop or laptops, plural, some of which she then sent to China and elsewhere, some of which she kept in her home. And if you look at that to my left and your right, that's an example of what we call a laptop farm, where she literally had all those laptops in her house, allowing North Koreans to remotely log into those computers inside of her own house. They had access to U.S. company networks, while all of these American companies and corporations actually thought the employee to whom they were sending a paycheck in Arizona was American. The financial damage, all told, the North Korean network enabled by Chapman tallied $17 million in revenue that went right back to North Korea. Now, I and my partners here that you'll hear from in a few minutes have a message to corporate America. This is a code red. Your tech sectors are being infiltrated by North Korea. And when big companies are lax and they're not doing their due diligence, they are putting America's security at risk. And it's time for the big corporations to step up for employee verification, which went through a change as a result of COVID, where there is this lax kind of overseeing of who employees are. It's time for businesses to verify their workers, monitor their conduct, create a zero trust structure, and they've got to do this before the security of our country is compromised. That means do a real interview. Get them on camera. Look and see if the person whose picture you have is the person that you're talking to. And it's cost neutral for the company or the corporation, which in the end can have its own data compromised, its own customer list compromised, and ultimately affect all of us. Now, the workers, there's no question, they were all working for the companies. They made upwards of $5,000 a week. And some even got congratulation certificates from the companies as they then sent their money back to North Korea to buy munitions to be used against us. Now, you all know, and you don't need to hear me tell you this, but North Korea has long been developing and testing for a nuclear weapon in violation of U.S. and UN sanctions. And as we've watched, North Korea has developed the ability to launch long-range missiles to strike even the United States. But they are no longer just a threat from afar. They are inside our house. And they are the enemy. And with this perpetrator fraud on American citizens, American companies and banks, unwitting Fortune 500 companies, hiring remote workers, the aim is to cripple our country. Now, I just want to mention one thing before I turn the podium over to some of my friends here. One of the companies that was actually willing to identify themselves, and I'm very proud of them, and I really want to give them a shout out, because as many of you know, most companies don't want to be named, okay? Nike wrote a letter to the federal sentencing judge in this case, and they encapsulated exactly what's going on here. They said on behalf of Nike, the defendant's decision to obtain employee through Nike via identity theft was a betrayal of trust that we as an organization extend to every member of our team. This incident then required us to expend valuable time and resources on internal investigations to confirm that our systems were never breached and to develop and implement additional safeguards and protocols. Now, further, the fact that wages paid to the defendant by Nike, $74,000 over their 5-month scheme, funneled to foreign state actors compounds the violation of trust and raises concerns about the intentions and affiliations of the defendant. And so Nike is asking the court to consider the damage to Nike, which they themselves didn't suffer any damage. They had an IT worker who did the work, got paid for the work, but they understand the subliminal message and the real threat of their money being paid to North Korea and their munitions development system. Now, I'm also going to right now turn the podium over to the Assistant Director of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, Roman Rashevsky, who partnered with us on the case, and then he will turn it over to some of our state and IRS partners. Rose Roman. Hi.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Pirro. Today's announcement lays bare a multi-million-dollar campaign waged by North Korea's authoritarian regime to compromise our economic and national security. Through a series of increasingly brazen criminal schemes, the North Korean government is attempting to fund its nuclear weapons program and evade U.S. sanctions, while victimizing American companies, American financial institutions, and American citizens. The FBI and our partners are doing everything we can to defend the homeland, and that is why I'm very pleased to announce today's sentencing of U.S. citizen Christina Chapman to 8.5 years for her part in these schemes. The FBI's investigation uncovered a years-long plot to install North Korean IT workers as remote employees across the U.S., from Fortune 500 companies to U.S. government agencies. Those victim organizations thought they were employing American IT workers located in the U.S. In reality, the companies had been tricked into hiring North Koreans who were using stolen identities to pose as Americans and working from places like Russia and China. These North Korean IT workers were accessing the company's networks and sensitive data through laptop farms located inside the homes of U.S. persons. The laptop farms allow the IT workers to conceal their true locations and to earn money from for the North Korean government. But they can't do this alone. They need the help of people like Christina Chapman. As she admitted, she ran a laptop farm out of her home in Arizona, enabling the IT workers to victimize over 300 U.S. organizations, to steal the identities of at least 68 Americans, some of whom even ended up with tax bills for wages they'll never see, and funnel over $17 million to North Korea's regime. Chapman not only hosted the laptops, but also helped deceive American financial institutions into sending the IT workers' earnings to the North Korean government. And the money went straight to North Korea's nuclear weapons program, which is a direct threat to the U.S. homeland and our allies all around the world. The FBI and our partners won't stand for North Korea's attacks on our economic and national security, but U.S. companies also have an important role to play in keeping our nation safe. Christina Chapman's laptop farm alone generated $17 million and victimized hundreds of U.S. companies, and we believe this was just one of many laptop farms in our country. We believe there are thousands of other North Korean IT workers doing this as we speak today. We want our private sector partners to realize that the threat might already exist within your organizations. To root it out, we need you to apply greater scrutiny to your remote employees so you know exactly who you're hiring. We've released a public service announcement today detailing ways you can protect yourselves. Some of these are contact businesses and schools directly to verify new hires' employment and educational history. If meeting virtually, do it on camera and conduct drug tests and fingerprinting in person to verify a remote employee's identity. Keep an eye out for changes in their physical address, particularly after you've hired them, but before you've sent them the equipment. Take note of unusual network traffic, including remote connections to devices and the use of remote desktop software. Educate your hiring managers and HR teams about this growing threat. And please, if you suspect your business has been targeted, contact us immediately. Call your local FBI field office or report it to our Internet Crime Complaint Center at www.ic3.gov. Today's sentencing would not have been possible without the dedicated men and women of the FBI's counterintelligence and cyber divisions and our Phoenix and Chicago field offices. I also want to thank our colleagues across the federal government, including the Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, and the Internal Revenue Service for their collaboration and partnership on this investigation and on combating the North Korean threat. The FBI and our partners are committed to using every tool at our disposal to deny North Korea its profits and cut into funding for their weapons program. And we're equally dedicated to keeping American companies and American citizens from being victimized by the North Korean regime. Together, we can hold North Korea accountable and keep our nation safe.
Want to speak next?
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Brown. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for the Phoenix Field Office of the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. IRS Criminal Investigation utilizes the financial expertise of our special agents to identify perpetrators of identity theft and to hold them accountable for American taxpayers. Today, we're grateful for the outcome of this investigation. Christina Chapman facilitated a massive and complex $17 million employment and identity theft fraud to enrich herself, her co-conspirators, and North Korea. She compromised our national security. She compromised the data and security of hundreds of U.S. companies, and she compromised the identities of 68 American taxpayers. Identity theft and employment fraud are pervasive crimes that often result in false tax liabilities for the victims. And today our message to victims of identity theft are there are resources and tools available to you to help overcome the damage that occurs from these types of crimes. I encourage you to reach out to the FTC through their website, identitytheft.gov, or through the IRS's website, irs.gov, where there are resources and methods for you to report identity theft and identify tools to help you overcome the damage that occurs from it. We too are grateful for our partnerships with FBI, the State Department, and especially the U.S. Attorney's Office in supporting this investigation and holding Ms. Chapman accountable for her fraud and providing justice to these victims and the American taxpayer. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, U.S. Attorney Pirro and Assistant Director Rajowski. My name is Jonathan Fritz. I'm the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, and I'm just going to take a moment or two to just reemphasize some of the points that were made already by my colleagues about the stakes for U.S. national security and foreign policy in this particular case. Protecting Americans and American businesses is our top priority. So we take this threat from North Korea's malicious schemes very seriously, as you can see from the actions taken by the U.S. government here today. North Korea's illicit revenue-generating activities, whether cryptocurrency theft, illicit IT work, oil smuggling, or selling counterfeit cigarettes, these are not entrepreneurial efforts on behalf of innocent North Koreans. Rather, these are deliberate activities orchestrated by the North Korean government, often by military-affiliated entities within the North Korean government, to evade U.S. and UN sanctions, to fund North Korea's efforts to target the United States and our allies with unlawful weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missiles. North Korea cannot argue that these weapons are simply a deterrent. Since 2023, we have seen North Korea unlawfully transfer ballistic missiles to Russia, which in turn has used those missiles to strike Ukrainian territory, including Kyiv, undermining President Trump's efforts to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. The president has been clear that he remains ready to engage with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in pursuit of a peaceful resolution to tensions on the Korean Peninsula, and we believe dialogue is the only path to obtaining a sustainable peace. However, at the same time, we will not stand by while North Korea preys on American companies and citizens and engages in elaborate transnational criminal schemes to gain access to U.S. dollars. So we'll keep working with our colleagues across the interagency to protect U.S. companies, the U.S. financial system, and of course, American citizens. Thank you.
So I guess you can see how working together with the FBI, the IRS, the State Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, this is, as far as we know, the largest identity theft case of its kind that we in history, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
For both you and Mr. Brown, Americans lost their identities through this scheme as well. They were targeted or victimized as part of this. Any sense as to how many or how widespread or how they were vulnerable?
You know, some of them I don't believe even knew that they were victims of identity theft. Unfortunately, the way to resolve this, I mean, the way to cut back on it and to make sure that it doesn't continue happening is to put the onus on big corporations and companies. If you'll see this driver's license over here in South Carolina, everything about it reeks of it being fraudulent. I mean, I've never seen a license expired 12/2/4/2027. I mean, there are so many obvious problems with that. But what they do is they'll take someone's ID and then they will then say, I'm now living in Arizona at Chapman's house. No one ever says, go outside and take a picture so I can see you're really living in Kansas or Arizona. No one double checks it. So sometimes the victims may not even know that they're victims until, as you just heard from the IRS, they get hit with an IRS penalty. Anyone want to add to that? Okay. Hi.
So did she know specifically that she was working for the North Koreans, or did she think it was Chinese or Russians? Did she know exactly what was going on?
We believe that she knew. We believe all indications are that she knew, and she pled guilty to knowing. So I think in the end, there's no question that she knew. And that's why the judge sentenced her to 102 months, which someone figured out was 8.5 years. Which one was it? Of course, the IRS guy. Yeah. Anything else? No. No. Do you want to do an off topic?
There is going to be a review of what they characterize as the Russiagate issue. You probably come through this office, being the U.S. Attorney for the nation's capital. Did you brief on that or expect anything to move on that?
You know, one of the things I learned as a young prosecutor many years ago was that you don't confirm, you don't deny, you don't say anything, and pretty much you wait until you have the evidence. That's the way I was raised. Okay? It's good to see you. Please give the message to the companies and the corporations. This is easy stuff. They're getting hit on too, because as my assistant U.S. attorney, Karen Seifert, made very clear to me, the North Koreans are excellent at monetizing information. And they can monetize information from the companies, their database, their employee base, all kinds of information, and then be subjected to shareholder lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested. And thank you to my partners. Thanks, guys.
All right, just listening in there, interim U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, talking about this important subject as an Arizona woman sentenced to 8.5 years for what she's calling a laptop farm at her home in Litchfield Park. Of course, saying that there were people, North Koreans, logging into those computers from abroad, making profits, some $17 million there, as she has pled guilty to that. So a very important subject. And you also heard the national security implications to this from different members of the FBI and the DOJ there in our nation's capital. I'm Andy Mack. You're on Live Now from Fox. Coming up here in just a little bit, we'll take you out to the White House as President Trump expected.
We do follow the latest on the files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who you see right there on your screen. Officials with the U.S. Justice Department are believed to be interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell today at the Florida prison where the former associate of Epstein is serving her sentence. The House Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before lawmakers. That would be next month. The DOJ, though, saying it's clear that Maxwell has no problem lying under oath and that her testimony is not reliable. House Speaker Mike Johnson echoing those concerns.
If they see fit to bring in Ghislaine Maxwell for testimony, that's fine. I will note the obvious concern, the caveat that Chairman Comer and I and everyone has, that could she be counted on to tell the truth? Is she a credible witness? I mean, this is a person who's been sentenced to many, many years in prison for terrible, unspeakable conspiratorial acts and acts against innocent young people. I mean, can we trust what she's going to say? Even if she raises her hand and says that she'll testify under oath, is that something that can be trusted? You know, that's a reasonable question. Is that credible evidence? I don't know. But we'll have to see. We have to, uncover everything that we can and let the American people evaluate.
At the same time, Senator Adam Schiff, a California Democrat, has called on Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel to, quote, testify about this now. He posted this video on X.
Over the last several months, the Justice Department dispatched hundreds, if not thousands, of agents to comb through the Epstein files and flag any mention of Donald Trump. Now we learn in May, Pam Bondi informed Trump that his name is included in those files. Bondi knew, Patel knew, but in July, as recently as just a week or two ago, Trump denied being informed that his name was in those files, even though we have now learned Bondi told him. We need to bring Bondi and Patel into the Judiciary Committee to testify about this now.
Senator Schiff there is referencing the Wall Street Journal article published Wednesday, claiming that Attorney General Pam Bondi told President Trump back in May that his name appeared in the files related to Epstein. Now, I do want to note the Wall Street Journal shares common ownership with Fox. However, Fox has not independently confirmed the truth of that Wall Street Journal's reporting. The Justice Department was asked about the paper's report, the DOJ not commenting on that, but issuing a joint statement from Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch. It states that investigators reviewed the records and, quote, nothing in the files warranted further investigation or prosecution, end quote. In the meantime, reaction on the Epstein files has been coming in from both sides of the aisle. I do want to bring in Congressman Ralph Norman, a Republican representing South Carolina's 5th District, to get his take on all of this. Congressman, I know you're busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Glad to be with you, Jason.
All right, so first off, overall, I just want to get your overall take on the situation that's unfolding there in Washington as it relates to these Epstein files.
Well, first of all, what's happening with Epstein really transcends politics. This is about the abuse of 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls. So we've got to get to the bottom of it. Public demands it, and transparency is what's needed on this. And as far as, all the things about getting the transcripts from grand jury, I think they cover from 2005 and 2007, the testimony of Ms. Maxwell, all that is fair game. And I think the speaker had a good comment or good thoughts about whether can she be trusted. Well, that's for the professionals to figure out. And you never know what she will say, but I know she's looking at 20 years of being behind bars. You never know what she will try to bargain to get out of the make a lighter sentence. But all of it points to one thing. Let's get everything out, any list out. And wherever it takes us, the public demands it, and I think the public will end up getting it.
Do you think that grand jury testimony being released will be enough, or is that just kind of the start of it? Because as you mentioned there, a lot of folks are calling for the full immediate release. So is that enough to release the grand jury testimony and just that?
No, I think it's a start. I think, those that are looking at this want to get all of it out that's relevant. We've had the concern about innocent victims not wanting their names public and getting that redacted out of any report, but that can happen. I think anything that's relevant on a man that did this much damage over this period of time, it ought to come out, and it's the right thing to do at the right time.
You kind of touched on this, but I want to ask you a little bit more in depth here. How do you feel about the idea of that subpoena against Ghislaine Maxwell? Should any potential testimony from her actually be made public? Should the public out there be able to watch it if she does testify?
I let the experts, the lawyers decide what's the right thing to do on that. Will there be a lot of interest if she testifies? We'll see. But I think everything's on the table, including her testimony and the grand jury transcripts that have already been in the record. Everything just ought to be brought out. I think it's not going to die down, Josh. It's not going to die down from a public standpoint. And I think people just want to know, and then they'll see what the truth is, and we can move on from it.
Any misconceptions or misunderstandings that you want to clear up here about the Epstein files or the potential release? Because as you know, if you go on social media, you see this, you see that. Anything that you specifically think should be cleared up and is maybe a misconception out there?
Well, the misconception of what ought to be cleared up is the Democrats are using this as a wedge, they think, against Donald Trump and the hatred of him. Where were they the 4 years Biden was in office? Why wasn't the questions and releasing material requested? It was crickets. They didn't say anything. So that's a misconception. But I think the public sees through that. Are they going to be as interested in what they're apparently finding on Barack Obama, trying to make sure President Trump wasn't elected president? Is there that much interest on Martin Luther King? All these things, the taxpayers have a right to know, and we'll let the jury, the ultimate jury, will be the taxpayers and the public.
Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. As I mentioned, I know you're very busy here. Anything else you want to add? Anything we forgot to mention that you want to make sure to get across?
Well, just, all of us, the Republicans anyway, want this thing out. The president's been in office for 5 months now, and he's doing so many great things. And this just needs to be put behind us, and I think it will be. We're out for the month of August, and we'll come back and take it up. And I think a lot over the next couple of weeks will come out that will aid in the public's getting what they needed, which is transparency on this case.
What we do know right now is U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch will meet with Ghislaine Maxwell in federal prison, and the meeting could happen as early as today. That's what we're hearing. We're keeping an eye on this here for you. The news comes after the top-ranking official of the GOP-led House Oversight and Government Reform Committee subpoenaed a longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein as the battle for the release of information regarding his alleged clients continues there. Representative James Comer, he's the chairman of the committee, announced yesterday that convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell has been subpoenaed for a deposition in the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida, where she is currently serving a 20-year sentence. So moments ago on Capitol Hill, we actually did hear from Representative Comer on that. However, as I give you a live look there at the U.S. Capitol, we also did hear Comer speaking on another story we're following here today. Senior former Biden administration official Ronald Klain is appearing before House investigators today. Klain served as former President Joe Biden's chief of staff in the first half of his term, from the beginning of his term in January 2021 until early February of 2023. He's expected to sit down with staff from the House Oversight Committee behind closed doors this morning for a voluntary transcribed interview. Once again, Chairman James Comer there, he is investigating whether Biden's top White House aides concealed signs of mental decline in the then president, and if that meant executive actions were signed via auto pen without his knowledge. So once again, hearing from Representative James Comer moments ago there on Capitol Hill, let's play out his remarks for you right now.
I think he'll be forthcoming. I mean, he's at the top of the organizational chart for the Biden administration. I think everyone in America is wondering whether or not Joe Biden was mentally fit to be president of the United States, especially during the last 6 months of his administration. Everyone's concerned by the excessive use of the auto pen. Americans want to know, was Joe Biden, in fact, aware of what the auto pen was being used to sign his name on, or was, in fact, some family members or high-level officials in the Biden administration just acting unilaterally as president of the United States and using the auto pen?
How quickly do you plan to issue the subpoena to the DOJ for the Epstein files?
Well, we're moving very quickly on everything we're doing right now, and August recess is going to be an opportunity for us to move even quicker. We can, we have a very good staff here. August 11th is the date when we hope to depose Maxwell in that prison facility in Tallahassee. The others that happened yesterday, we're going to move quickly on that. All the names that were mentioned are names that have been mentioned in the past with respect to the Epstein saga. So I'm surprised that the Democrats went along with subpoenaing Bill and Hillary Clinton and others that have been involved in that. I think we all know that Maxwell was at the wedding of Chelsea Clinton. So certainly they had a relationship with Maxwell. I don't know what that relationship was. I never thought that we would be questioning the Clintons and others on with respect to the Epstein files, but the Democrats voted in a bipartisan manner yesterday to do that. So what I've told people all week, the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee have been very interested in this Epstein ordeal for weeks now. And I told Mike Johnson that our members wanted to pursue that. So it's not like there was any cover up from the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, because our guys really want to know. But today we're here to talk about Ron Klain and the auto pin scandal.
About Ron Klain, will you ask him specifically about the Hunter Biden claim that his dad was on Ambien? Obviously, Ron Klain was there helping Biden prep. Will you ask him specifically about the Ambien?
Of course. I mean, Ambien is a controlled substance. That is a mind-altering drug. You look at the two interviews that the Biden family members have given. You had Joe Biden incriminate himself last week in the New York Times. He said that, well, he didn't know who all those people were that were being pardoned. He delegated to his staff to determine who to pardon. That's not how the pardon process works. Okay, that alone could get, if you knew the specific pardons he was talking about, that alone would get those pardons kicked out of court. And then Hunter Biden gives his infamous interview, and he says that the reason his dad did poorly in the debate was because he was loaded up on Ambien. I mean, was that a one-time deal, or was he on Ambien every day? If so, then that's a problem.
To go to sleep.
But he said he was on at night, but that debate was during the day. That debate, I mean, it was, what is the definition of night for Joe Biden? I mean, when was the auto pin used? Was the auto pin used in the afternoon? I mean, night for Joe Biden is afternoon for you and I, apparently.
Have you spoken to Speaker Johnson about any of these subpoenas to Ms. Maxwell, to the DOJ? Yesterday,
we spoke yesterday afternoon during the subcommittee meeting, and I told him that the members were going to amend the motion by whatever Democrat it was that made the motion. I can't remember now. And that it appeared there was bipartisan support to proceed with this. So I told Speaker Johnson last week, if we were in session this week, that Republicans on the Oversight Committee were going to move to be more aggressive in trying to get transparency with the Epstein files. So we did that, and I think that's what the American people want. We're not doing that for any political reasons. When we go home and listen to our constituents, they're very interested in the Epstein files, but they're very interested in the auto pin scandal as well. So that's what I'm going to go in here. We're going to begin the deposition with Ron Klain, and hopefully we'll be able to find some answers. Thank you all.
A highly unorthodox meeting is set for round 2 in just a few hours. The Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanch, is going to be meeting with Jeffrey Epstein's convicted former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, meeting again at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tallahassee, Florida. That is where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring, as John just mentioned, with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse young girls. There are very big questions surrounding all of this, given the, one, obscurity of the meeting, and two, the lack of credibility that this woman has. What was asked of her? What information did Maxwell provide? What is being negotiated, and what is her motivation to speak at all? And can she be trusted to tell the truth? Todd Blanch has said that the Justice Department will be sharing any information that they learn, but, quote, at the appropriate time. And this all puts into focus, once again, how the White House is struggling, the president is struggling to turn the page on the issue over the Epstein files, as he has called it a hoax, but very clearly he can't shake it, and Congress does not share that viewpoint. Congress has made it clear they don't think it is a hoax. They want to see the files, and they aren't giving up. The Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, has already issued a subpoena to depose Maxwell. And he also says he's now moving quickly with issuing a subpoena to the Justice Department for all of those Epstein files. CNN's Kara Scannell tracking all of this for us this morning. What are you learning now, Kara?
Hey, good morning, Kate. Those are all great questions and questions that we are trying to get the answers to. But as you said, this is the second meeting, the second day in a row where Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell is convicted and serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking of minors. Prosecutors had proven at a 4-week trial that Maxwell had abused underage girls, recruited them and groomed them for Epstein to also sexually abuse them. So the big questions here is, what are the terms of this meeting? What are the ground rules here? Is Maxwell being offered anything for her testimony? She is trying to appeal her conviction and also this 20-year sentence that she is only a few years into serving. So a lot of questions about what is left to talk about today. We did see yesterday that the lawyers met for the full day. They arrived at 9 a.m. They left at 4 p.m. David Oscar Marcus, Maxwell's attorney, told CNN afterwards, he said that Ghislaine honestly answered every question that Mr. Blanch asked, and she will continue to do so. We are grateful that the government is trying to uncover the truth. Now, what the content of these discussions are, the questions, the answers, Blanch has said that he wants to know if Maxwell knows of anyone that committed any crimes against minors, these victims of the case. Now, Maxwell has denied any wrongdoing. She was, in fact, charged by the Justice Department with perjury for what she said in a civil lawsuit when she denied any knowledge of Epstein's scheme to recruit underage girls and have them give him sexualized massages. She has always maintained her innocence. So it is unclear what the scope of this testimony is, why it requires 2 days, and what she is saying, though we did see the video of her returning to prison yesterday where she was carrying a box in her hands. It's unclear what is in that box. Could be items that she brought to the meeting, or maybe it's information they want her to review. But she will be back in this meeting today, and we'll look to see how soon it is afterwards that Todd Blanch might update the public on what transpired in this meeting, what the Justice Department learned. Is it going to be enough to kind of quell the growing storm around this, the storm that won't go away, and if Maxwell's attorney provides any update today? Kate?
Yeah, Kara Scannell, thank you so much. John?
All right, with us now, CNN political commentator Alyssa Farah-Griffin and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Hogan. And I have to say, Ellie, that Kara just raised, a number of really important points here as we head into this extraordinary day 2 of meetings between Todd Blanch and Ghislaine Maxwell. What are the terms? What are the ground rules? What's in the box that Maxwell is carrying? And how will we ever find out?
Okay, what is happening here resembles superficially the very ordinary cooperation process that I went through countless times as a prosecutor. You have a criminal defendant, that person's interested in cooperating, you spend days upon days with them, and you download everything they have. It looks like that's what's happening here, but let's be clear, it's not. This is not going to result in Ghislaine Maxwell becoming a full cooperating witness for the United States of America. This is not realistically, given her credibility problems, given her past, going to result in DOJ in signing her up as a cooperator, giving her a sentencing break, indicting new people based on her calling her as a witness at trial. And so the question then becomes, and I think these are what Kara's questions go to, what is the end game? What are they trying to do? It looks to me like they're trying to check a box. They're trying to appease the critics, be able to say, look, we sat down with her, we got information, we dug in, we tried to find the truth, and hopefully that'll appease people. I don't know if it'll work, but I think that's the end game.
And how will we find, I think, look, we're going to hear only, I think, what Maxwell is telling Blanch via Blanch and maybe Maxwell's attorneys, and all of their interests may be aligned. I mean, how will we ever see real data on this?
Exactly. You would never have somebody audio recording this type of scenario or video recording this type of scenario. We don't know, but I would assume that holds true here. Ordinarily, and it seems like what's happening here is you will have a prosecutor, Todd Blanch, in this case, very unusual, by the way, that it's the deputy AG, asking questions, and one or more FBI agents taking notes. They will then, the FBI agents will produce what's called a 302, which is a written summary. But you're right. Who controls the questioning? And then who controls what we see of this? The answer is DOJ, Todd Blanch, and the FBI.
Alyssa, you know, to quote the famous political film Mean Girls, the president keeps trying to make hoax happen when it comes to the Epstein case. He calls it a Democratic hoax and whatnot. But I want you to listen to House Speaker Mike Johnson, what he just said about all of this.
We want full transparency. We want everybody who was involved in any way with the Epstein evils, let's call it what it was, to be brought to justice as quickly as possible. We want the full weight of the law on their heads. This is not a hoax.
The same thing.
Of course not.
Of course not. So what does that tell you about the messaging the president has been trying to deliver? As again, we're standing by to see the president depart for Scotland, where I imagine Epstein may come up on his way out.
Yeah, the president can't make hoax or fetch happen at this point. But listen, Mike Johnson and Donald Trump are virtually always aligned. But in this moment, keep in mind, we're a year and 4 months out from the midterms. Mike Johnson's members are going home to their districts for this August recess. And many of them are going to hear from very angry constituents over the flip-flop and reversal on the Epstein files. Many voters turned out. One of the reasons they did is they wanted to get to the bottom of this. You know, Donald Trump doesn't really have to deal with this beyond just the continual drip of questions and getting grilled by reporters, but he's not standing for re-election again. And Mike Johnson's top job right now is keeping the House majority. So he is going to have to create some daylight with Trump. He also said something interesting when asked yesterday, I believe, where he kind of sowed some doubt that Ghislaine Maxwell could actually be a trustworthy person, because this is a convicted sex trafficker. This is somebody who assisted a man with grooming and with bringing other women into this horrible circumstances. So he also seems to be maybe kind of pouring some cold water on the idea that she's going to help us get to the bottom of anything, or that she herself should be trusted. It's the right move. It's the right move by Johnson. He's got to focus on protecting his members and cannot have them dragged down by the White House's mishandling of this.
It is interesting. You bring up Maxwell again, and you have to, I hope people do remember what some of the victims, Epstein's victims, have said. I mean, they have said that, this was testimony in her trial, that she sexually abused them. She was convicted of conspiring to sexually abuse minors. And how much of a risk, Alyssa, is there that in these meetings where the Justice Department, you know, seems to be praising the idea of the meetings, Maxwell's lawyers are praising the Justice Department, how much political risk is there of trying to seem too cozy?
I honestly think it's a complete misreading of the room. If you want justice for Jeffrey Epstein, if you are outraged over the behavior he engaged in, you should be equally outraged over Ghislaine Maxwell's behavior. I mean, there's a special place in hell for women who would help men abuse younger women. That's just, I think that's a universal take of people who want to get to the bottom of this Epstein saga. So there, I think, is a real fear. Is she going to get some kind of a deal? Is she incentivized that she should cooperate with what the Justice Department or the White House wants to hear her say, because she might get a more lenient sentence or ultimately a pardon at the end of Trump's term? Those are things that his base does not want. They see her as big of a monster as Jeffrey Epstein. So I think they have to navigate this really carefully. I think the first thought is, okay, we might get some answers from her, but we're skeptical because she's untrustworthy. If she helps us nail some people who are involved in this, fine. But if it seems like this is actually kind of to whitewash her own wrongdoing and criminality, I think that that's going to really backfire on the White House.
Ellie, a whole bunch of reporting on the so-called birthday book. The Wall Street Journal is the one who originally reported that Donald Trump had written this note in the book and then signed his name and done a doodle. He denied that, suing the Wall Street Journal. The New York Times says his name is on a list of contributors to the book. Again, having your name in the book or even in the Jeffrey Epstein files doesn't indicate wrongdoing. However, the presence of a book, if there is in fact this birthday book and it's, you know, subpoenaed by Congress. Ro Khanna says he wants to see it right now. How does the presence of a book, if it's proven, affect Donald Trump's lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal?
Well, the presence of the existence of that book would kill Donald Trump's lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal. What he has to show in order to prove they defamed him is that A, their reporting is false, and B, that they knew it was false. So if it exists, it's sounding more and more like it does. That's going to really undermine, really probably end his defamation case. If I can real quick, Alyssa and Speaker Johnson both made very good points. The reasons Ghislaine Maxwell is not going to solve anything for anyone. One, she has no credibility. Remember who she is. People are treating her now like she's a savior. She's a convicted sex trafficker who has done nothing but refused to talk, and when she has talked, lied. And anyone who's holding out hope that she's going to come in and bring justice for these victims, think again.
I want to bring in NBC's Aaron Gilchrist in Tallahassee. David Drucker is senior writer at The Dispatch. Here with me in studio is former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Paul Butler, along with Simone Sanders Townsend, former chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris and co-host of The Weeknight. Paul, take us inside that room. What's your best assessment, knowing how these things can work? And we know this is not regular, but what's happening now? What are the discussions?
They're trying to find out whether she has any information that could lead to charges against other people. So in the press briefing today, President Trump emphasized he's especially interested in former President Clinton and Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard. Now, just like there's no evidence suggesting that Trump was involved in sex trafficking, there's no evidence so far suggesting that those other folks were interested or involved in Epstein's sex trafficking.
Or in fact, anyone else. This has been investigated, litigated, relitigated, right?
That's exactly right. And so Miss Maxwell is trying to get out of jail. So she will say what she thinks she needs to say in order to get the Department of Justice to recommend a lower sentence or to get President Trump to pardon her. Her history, Chris, is the opposite of cooperating with law enforcement. In 2021, when the FBI showed up to do a search warrant at her house, she hid from them. They found her cell phone wrapped in tinfoil, which she apparently thought would prevent it from being wiretapped. When she was deposed in 2016, she said that she had no knowledge of any underage girls being on any of Epstein's properties other than one person. And she said that as far as she knew, Epstein had only had sex with 2 people other than her. At her sentencing, the judge said she had not accepted responsibility for these crimes. So whatever she says, there's no reason to believe it. She's not credible.
So, Aaron, as that's going on inside, what's the scene outside? What can you tell us about what's happening at the courthouse?
Well, Chris, we know that the key players are very likely in that meeting, that interview again today. We were able to see some of those players coming into the courthouse this morning right around 9 o'clock. And since then, it's really been radio silence. We don't know from the Department of Justice's perspective a lot about what they've been able to glean or what they're trying to get from Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that the Attorney General yesterday, after meeting for more than 4 hours, we believe, didn't have much to say coming out of the courthouse, and late last night posted on social media that he had the meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said that he would share additional information about what they learned from her at the appropriate time. That's the indication we got from the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanch. The lawyers for Ghislaine Maxwell have had a little more to say in the time that they've been coming in and out of the courthouse here in Tallahassee. Mr. Marcus saying today that he was grateful that the government is trying to uncover the truth, the words that he used. I want you to hear a little bit more about his perspective on what's happening with these meetings and what the end goal might be.
We're hoping for another productive day. You know, Ghislaine has been treated unfairly for over 5 years now. If you looked up scapegoat in the dictionary, her face would be next to the dictionary definition of it. So, you know, we're grateful for this opportunity to finally be able to say what really happened. And that's what we're going to do yesterday and today.
So we know that there are people outside this courthouse paying attention to what's happening. There, a senior Justice Department official tells NBC News that the Attorney General Pam Bondi had been briefed on the meeting that happened here yesterday and is continuing to follow what's happening. At the same time, there are members of the public who are very much aware that this is happening. We were able to see a plane flying overhead here outside the federal courthouse with a banner on it that said Trump and Bondi are protecting predators. This is an organization called Ultraviolet that's put this banner up in the air here, trying to make a point about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein sort of having been betrayed by this additional conversation with Ghislaine Maxwell that, as your guest noted, that perhaps the Maxwell team hopes will lead to some leniency after we know she was sentenced to 20 years in prison back in 2021, Chris.
Aaron, thank you for that. Simone, scapegoat. Ghislaine Maxwell as a scapegoat. This is what the DOJ said she was convicted of. Heinous crimes against children, including a scheme to sexually exploit and abuse girls as young as 14. And then Maria Farmer, who is one of the women who says that she was abused, describes Maxwell this way.
I've never met a more predatory, terrifying human being in my entire life. And neither had Virginia Giuffre, and neither has Annie or Anushka or many girls like Shantae Davies. There's hundreds of us that were preyed upon by Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a very dangerous person, and she threatened my life on many occasions. I've had to move and be in hiding because of this predatory child predator and just victim predator. So it's completely unacceptable for anyone to call her a victim. The woman is not a victim. She's a victimizer.
A victim, a scapegoat. So what we're hearing is this isn't just that she has lied. This isn't just that she tried to do some things that would indicate she was trying to evade police. What we're hearing is that she's flat out dangerous. How should people account for that if and when we ever do learn, as Todd Blanch suggested in his post, whatever comes out of this?
Ghislaine Maxwell went to trial. And I don't think people should gloss over what Paul noted, that the judge in that trial said that she never expressed remorse. And I would go further to note that they underscored she never said she did anything wrong. She groomed these young women. Maria Farmer mentioned Virginia Giuffre in her comments last night to our colleague Jen Psaki. At 16 years old, Virginia Giuffre said that she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell while she was working at Mar-a-Lago, I would note, where Donald Trump is his, the summer White House. And Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her and groomed her, and then passed her around to some unnamed associates. So this is who Ghislaine Maxwell is. And so I'm just kind of like, the lady has just been, for lack of a better term, tight as a tick for almost 10 years about this. What would make anyone believe that now all of a sudden she has new information? I thoroughly believe that the Justice Department in 2017, 2018, 2019, the Trump Justice Department, because that's when he was president, if there was credible evidence where they could have convicted someone else, I believe Maureen Comey would have done so. She was the prosecutor who was on the Ghislaine Maxwell case. So I think that, frankly, we have to separate two things here. One, you have Republicans, Democrats, MAGA Republicans, QAnon people who are calling for the release of the quote unquote Epstein files, which we should note are hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, grand jury testimony. Some of it is digital information that was found and seized at Epstein's home or Ghislaine Maxwell's home, because the FBI raided both, and other documents. That book that we're now hearing about, the birthday book, that's an example of the Epstein files. Those things, the hundreds of thousands of pages of that. We are only talking about this because the Trump folks made this a thing during the campaign. They whipped up the conspiracies around this. They said, we're going to expose the deep state. And then now it seems like once they found out that Donald Trump's name appears in the files, in these, again, hundreds and thousands of pages of documents, not saying that he is a pedophile, to be very clear. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying they said his name is in the documents. All of a sudden, the deep state conspiracy that they whipped up, that they started, it doesn't matter anymore. That is why this matters, because now I have more questions. Now America has more questions. Well, what is going on? Why don't you care anymore? What are you trying to cover up? And at the heart of this, we are talking about children. And I just have yet to hear anyone from the Justice Department, the White House, talk about the children, the victims of these very heinous crimes. It is sickening.
Yeah, and I want to go back to that. But when we see Todd Blanch saying that he'll reveal whatever at the appropriate time, one of the things we talked about on this program yesterday, Paul, was about how typically a DOJ lawyer would go in there who had been on a case like this for a very long time, who has done a deep dive over a period of years, and is going to know on its face when they're being told the truth and when they're being told the story, when the perpetrator's lawyer says, oh, well, there's corroborating evidence, that DOJ lawyer would know what exists and what doesn't exist. So does Todd Blanch, who, you know, to be fair, is new to this, comes in?
All right. I think we done heard it all. I made my point. I showed every single angle of this stupid damn Epstein stuff that I know everybody's very interested in. But I did show every single angle you can. I'll come back and do something later on. Possibly, it's still early. What's up, TK? How you doing, man? Tammy, how you doing? Ozzy, what's up, bro? What's up, Paul? What's up, Behavior Bender? What's up, Rai? What's up, TK? Anybody else I haven't seen in here? What's up? What's up? Hope everybody's having a damn good day. I gotta get some stuff. It's supposed to rain out today. I need to get some stuff done. But it seems like we could go on for days and days and days and days if we wanted to, as far as this stuff goes. That's why I get so tired of showing it, because it's just the same shit. You know, I know, Ozzy. I know. It's not hard to. You know what I'm saying? And I even show every single one. They all say the same thing. We ain't never gonna get the damn truth. You know, it's draining to hear the same shit. You know, people are like, "Oh, you avoid it, bro. What do you want me to do? Just talk about them 24/7?" You know how draining that is, bro. Come on. I actually enjoyed watching the story about the North Korean people and the shit they were doing. It was like it was like bad. It was bad, but it was just another topic. It was something different. It was more interesting. You know what I'm saying? So, no, we will never see any list. We won't. I agree. We will never see any list. That's all BS. Actual video and photos, but you're not interested, Bender, because it's a Biden and Trump. Yeah, there's video, man, of Biden, dude. The video of Biden is just, it's irrefutable. That stuff's disgusting. And the list has already been dropped, dude. I remember when they released the flight log and all that stuff a long time ago. Now, whether they redacted it, they sealed it, they scrubbed it, I don't know what happened in between. But I already remember it being released. I remember a lot of the people already. That's why we remember hearing Bill Gates, Prince Andrews. I remember Bill Gates sitting there going, you know, like saying basically when they asked about it, like he gave this smirk. And then when the dude got unalive, he's like, he's not here now, is he? And gave this weird ass smirk. I'll never forget it, bro. Yeah, a lot of people's stuff got deleted for sharing the truth, man. That presidency was a sham, because they definitely silenced us. That's for sure. They set us back years. Do we want blood or real policy change that matters to our children? Yeah, we want real policy change. We want I feel like less government, man. Less government. But something's got to change. I hope she doesn't get, bro, she better not, man. And I like how they keep saying the left is just so mad at Trump. I don't feel that way. It's just the right being mad, you know? It's like 89 and raining or something. I need to clean Marley's litter box and take the trash out. I'm kind of baked. I want to take a nap, maybe. I don't know. Or I'll do another show. I got to see what's going on here. Right now is the active government in the name of efficiency that received. Hey, man. We're doing what we got to do. What's the temperature like? You said it's 104? Damn. I can't tell what it says here. Now it just put the stock. Hold on. It's like 89 here. Damn, so it is hot. I think Marley got sick. I think he got a whole, like, I've been eating spicy stuff because I've got heartburn. I think Marley got into something because he's been all sorts of fucked up this morning. What's up, Bailey? Made it. Sushi ice cream. Yummy. I hate sushi anyways, let alone in an ice cream. Ugh, that's horrible, bro. I hate freaking sushi. How you doing? What's your weather looking like? What state are you in? Had a Eastern Diamondback in the driveway yesterday in Atlanta. That's how hot it is. Damn! An Eastern Diamondback, bro? What's up, Atlanta? Much love. Much love, man. I was actually... He said he ate some frozen sushi. I hate sushi, dude. I hate sushi anyway. So for it to be frozen, man, that's got to be horrible. Because I can't eat it not frozen. That sounds hideous. What it tastes like, bro? Was it like, what's the texture like? Was it like fishy, icy, fishy? I'm in Texas and it is hot and humid and our AC went out. No. Bro. Get your ass sick, dude. You like sushi, bro? I think I might have like a ribeye stir fry, dude. I'm hungry. I want some veggies. You love sushi? Aw. Right, la sushi. You go right in. You go get sushi. Yeah. Tim is asking, but he really doesn't want to know. No, I really don't. Ryan, you want some sushi ice cream? Don't you dare lie. You lying son of a bastard. I can't believe you would lie. I ate 18 trays of sushi the other day. Yuck. That'll make you sick, dude. I couldn't even think about it. Well, shit, everybody. I hope y'all have a damn good afternoon. I'll pop back in and see you guys. Look for me. I'll have something put together for us to watch. Something interesting, regardless. Even if it's like a like we did last night, watched Alex Jones. That shit was funny. Just seeing the comments alone was worth it. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, yo, I love you guys. Thanks for the support. Hit the like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Much love to everybody. Have a good afternoon. Peace out, y'all.